Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named Doctor Who Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a girl named Rose waking up from her wet dream, turning off her alarm and heading out to start what seems like just another ordinary day. Rose works as a store clerk. Although it's a bit boring, she has her boyfriend Mickey and her good friends to keep her company, so life isn't too bad. Today, the store is about to close, but Rose heads to the basement to deliver something to someone. She calls out for a while, but there's no response. Then she hears strange noises in the distance, which draw her into a room filled with plastic mannequins. Rose switches on the light and slowly explores the room, but midway through, the door slams shut behind her. Annoyed, she assumes someone's playing a prank and shouts for them to come out. Just then, one of the mannequins slowly turns its head to look at her, and then 3 mannequins start moving toward her step by step. Soon, every mannequin in the room begins to move, advancing towards her. Just as one of them is about to reach out to hit her, a man suddenly appears, who introduces himself as Doctor. As a background here, the Doctor is a Time Lord who can time travel and change his appearance and personality by regenerating when near death, and this is his 9th reincarnation in this universe. The Doctor grabs Rose and they escape quickly. The mannequins chase after them relentlessly, but luckily, they manage to reach the elevator in time. As the doors close, the Doctor even tears off one mannequin's arm and tosses it to Rose. She assumes this is just a prank by some students, as only students could pull off such a big act. The Doctor chuckles, explaining that this is no prank. These are real plastic people. The Doctor explains to Rose as they run to the rooftop, where there's a device controlling the plastic mannequins. The Doctor needs to destroy it quickly. At the door to the roof, he tells Rose to run for her shitty life and not to tell anyone about today's events. Meanwhile, he plans to handle the problem with explosives. Rose has no choice but to leave. Just as she gets some distance from the mall, there's a huge explosion on the rooftop, startling her into running home even faster. Once home, her boyfriend Mickey rushes over to embrace her, while her mother is busy handling a flood of inquiry calls as the news has already reported the massive explosion at Rose's workplace. Rose reassures Mickey that she's okay and tells him to relax and go watch his game. She hands him the mannequin's arm and asks him to throw it away. Mickey casually tosses it into a trash can on his way out of Rose's house. The next day, Rose is again woken up by her alarm. Her mom suggests she find another job or sue the store. Just then, Rose hears strange noises at the door, thinking her mom forgot to block the cat door. When she checks, she finds herself face to face with the Doctor. She opens the door, and the Doctor is surprised to see her again and wonders if there is something going wrong with the sonic screwdriver, which is capable of opening doors, sending and receiving signals. Rose pulls the Doctor into her house, asking her mom for a few minutes to figure out what happened yesterday. Upon seeing the muscular Doctor and smelling him good, Rose's mom tries to flirt with him, but the Doctor ignores her dying hormones completely. Rose makes coffee for the Doctor and suggests going to the police to explain everything. Meanwhile, the Doctor fiddles with everything he can get his hands on, showing no intention of going to the police. Suddenly, the severed mannequin arm attacks the Doctor, grabbing him by the neck. Rose finishes making coffee and at first doesn't notice the Doctor's predicament. The plastic arm then switches its attack to Rose, but the Doctor quickly uses his sonic screwdriver to stop it. He takes the now immobile arm and starts to leave, with Rose chasing after him, demanding an explanation. However, the Doctor doesn't want to explain much because Rose is just an outsider who stumbled into this situation. Not everything revolves around her. Rose retorts that the universe doesn't revolve around him either. Despite Rose's persistence, the Doctor finally begins to explain. He mentions that he had disrupted the plastic controlling signal with his screwdriver, and the real battle is between him and the entity controlling the plastic. Rose asks why anyone wants to control plastic and if they plan to take over every store in Britain. The Doctor chuckles at her question, then stops in front of a blue police box. He tells Rose that he can feel the Earth's rotation and sense their movement through the universe, but he advises her to forget about him. Rose realizes there's more to this man. He has his own story and deep down seems lonely. After a strange sound, both the Doctor and the blue police box disappear. Rose heads to Mickey's place and uses his computer to search for information about the mysterious Doctor. At first, nothing comes up, but once she includes the blue box as a keyword, she finds a photo of the Doctor and a post from someone. Rose and Mickey drive to meet this person. Though Mickey worries about her going alone, Rose insists. She meets someone like a mad scientist who leads her into his workshop, explaining that if she pays attention, she'll see the so-called doctor is everywhere at all times. He then shows Rose his collection of photos of the mysterious doctor appearing in major historical events, as if disaster and death follow him. The scientist warns her that if the doctor shows up in her life, all she can do is hope for the best. Meanwhile, outside, Mickey waits for Rose, but he's distracted by a moving trash can in front of him. As he checks it out, the trash can grabs his hand and swallows him whole, including his smelly part. When Rose returns to the car, she finds another Mickey waiting for her. This Mickey seems off, constantly talking about wanting pizza and driving erratically. Surprisingly, he manages to get them to their destination, a restaurant. Inside, the fake Mickey keeps ignoring everything Rose says, constantly asking her about the doctor and calling her pet names like darling and sweetheart in a strange way. Suddenly, the doctor shows up with a bottle of champagne and pops the cork right in the fake Mickey's face. The fake Mickey spits out the cork, revealing his true nature. He drops the act and starts fighting the doctor. The doctor rips off his tofu head, but the fake Mickey's body keeps moving on its own. Rose helps evacuate the restaurant, while the doctor carries the fake head to the rooftop, quickly locking the door behind them. Looking for another way out, Rose watches as the doctor calmly opens the blue police box's door. With no other options, she follows him inside. She's stunned by what she sees, runs back out, circles the box to check again, and re-enters in disbelief. It's bigger on the inside. The doctor explains that his box is incredibly sturdy and that the creature outside can't break in. Rose asks him if he is an alien. The doctor casually admits it, introducing the blue police box as the TARDIS, short for time and relative dimension in space, which is actually a time-traveling spaceship. Rose then questions whether her boyfriend is dead since the creature had copied him, and now the fake Mickey's head is melting. The doctor, visibly alarmed, shouts "No!" as he activates the TARDIS to track the enemy's signal. The TARDIS takes them to a riverside location, leaving Rose puzzled about how they got there. The doctor tells her she wouldn't understand. He then explains that he's on a mission to save humanity because these plastic beings are actually controlled by something called the Nestene consciousness. Their own planet was destroyed, and since they love Earth's materials, they plan to make Earth their next meal. The doctor shows Rose his anti-plastic solution and tells her that the Nestene consciousness is a massive metallic sphere nearby, though it's hidden from view. With Rose's help, he realizes that the Ferris wheel behind them is actually the transmitter for the consciousness. The two make their way into a hidden space beneath the Ferris wheel, where they find a strange lava-like substance. Rose urges the doctor to destroy it, but he insists on giving it a chance to repent, negotiating with the consciousness using universal peace treaties. Rose is thrilled to see her boyfriend alive. Meanwhile, the doctor pleads with the Nestene to spare humanity. Suddenly, mannequins pull the anti-plastic solution from the doctor's pocket and bring the TARDIS over, suspecting he's here to fight. The Nestene consciousness recognizes the TARDIS from a previous time war, remembering the one who piloted this blue box and caused the devastating intergalactic conflict. The doctor admits he participated in that war but was powerless to stop it, just as he couldn't save his own planet, let alone theirs. Upon hearing this, the consciousness enters a rage. The doctor urges Rose to flee with Mickey, but she receives a call from her mother, who mentions she's just collected her insurance payout. Rose tells her mom to go home, but it's too late. A massive energy beam from the consciousness uses the Ferris wheel to send a signal across the entire city, activating every plastic mannequin. The mannequins unleash energy beams from their hands, attacking people indiscriminately. Rose's mother finds herself trapped in the city center, surrounded by mannequins with nowhere to run. Faced with the dire situation, Rose mutters that she might not have much, but she did win a bronze in elementary school gymnastics. Grabbing a fire axe, she swings across to the doctor, helping him break free from the plastic mannequin's hold, and accidentally spills the anti-plastic onto the Nestene consciousness. The consciousness lets out a classic villainous chicken scream as it begins to disintegrate, with the entire room exploding around them. The doctor quickly leads Rose and Mickey to safety, and the mannequins return to their inert state after a final twitch. The doctor tells Rose mission accomplished, and she replies he couldn't have done it without her. The doctor hesitates, then asks if she'd like to join him, but Rose declines, saying she has her mom and boyfriend to look after. The doctor reluctantly closes the TARDIS door and departs alone. At that moment, Rose wonders if she just let a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. But then, the blue box returns. The doctor opens the door and asks if he had mentioned the TARDIS can travel through time and space. He reminds her this really is her second once-in-a-lifetime chance. Rose hesitates no more, thanks Mickey, and joyfully runs into the TARDIS. Thus begins the journey of Rose and the Ninth Doctor. After Rose joins the Doctor on a time-traveling journey, he asks if she wants to visit the past, present, or future. Rose says she wants to see 100 years into the future. With some adjustments, the TARDIS takes off, but it overshoots a bit, transporting them 5 billion years into the future aboard a spaceship within the solar system. At this point, the sun is expanding, ready to explode, and Rose is left in awe, chills sent through her spine to her smelly butt. The Doctor takes Rose on a tour around the spaceship. Rose asks who built it, and the Doctor explains that technically, it's an observation station built by aliens. By now, planets have become exclusive assets for the wealthy, and this ship is a luxury spot for various aliens to witness the sun's expansion and Earth's eventual destruction. Just then, a blue-skinned alien approaches them. We'll call him Blue. He curiously asks how the Doctor and Rose got on board. The Doctor pulls out his psychic paper, a universal pass of sorts. Though it's blank, Blue takes one look at it and assumes they're VIP guests, wishing them an enjoyable time. It turns out Blue is also the event's host, and he begins announcing the names of the guests as they arrive. Under his introductions, aliens of all shapes and sizes walk in from outside, leaving Rose marveling at the sight. A tree-like alien even steps forward and offers the Doctor a branch as a peace gift. The Doctor pats himself down, realizing he has nothing to offer in return, so he breathes out a bit of his lungs' air as a token. The tree alien graciously accepts it. The Doctor then encounters a few more aliens. A group of aliens dressed entirely in black gives him a beautiful metal sphere. A blue creature offers saliva as a gift, and the Doctor continues to offer his exhaled air as a reciprocal gift. In a place where saliva is a gift, air doesn't seem strange at all. The last guest to arrive is also the last human, a being named Cassandra, reduced to just a face stretched onto a frame with a brain in a jar, attended by 2 assistants who keep her moisturized. She brings the last ostrich egg from Earth and also presents an iPad as her other rare gift. Her assistants then play some TikTok jazz from Earth. Watching all these aliens gather here to witness Earth's end, Rose feels conflicted and steps out alone. She is soon approached by a blue-skinned woman who asks if Rose is in an off-limits area. The woman clarifies she can only speak if Rose permits it, and when Rose agrees, the woman reassures her that she's free to explore. Rose and the blue-skinned woman start chatting. It turns out she's a plumber here to fix a pipe in Cassandra's quarters. Not wanting to interrupt her work, Rose leaves. The plumber opens the duct and spots a 4-legged robot. These robots have been emerging from the metal spheres gifted by the black-clad aliens, who handed one out to nearly every guest, clearly up to something suspicious. When the robot spots her, it quickly retreats into the duct, but moments later, it returns with a group of robots, pulling the plumber into the duct with them. Meanwhile, Rose sits alone in an empty staircase room, talking to her tree branch, unaware that a small robot has emerged from one of the metal spheres. After directing the blue-skinned attendants to position the TARDIS properly, the Doctor arrives to check on Rose. The robot starts scanning Rose's hand but quickly retreats as soon as the Doctor arrives. Rose asks why all the aliens are speaking English. The Doctor assures her that it's not some universal language standard like in other shows. She's hearing English because the TARDIS's translation system has installed itself in her brain, translating his alien language directly into English. Rose continues to ask where the Doctor is from and what he really is, but he insists that he is simply himself, just the Doctor. After a brief silence, Rose sighs over his bullshit. The Doctor then modifies Rose's phone so she can call her mom across time and space. Just then, the spaceship shakes, and the Doctor says, "This shouldn't be happening." In the control room, Blue tells the guests it was just a minor tremor, but he's clearly unsure why it occurred. The robot appears, presses a button, turns off his sunlight filter, and Blue is instantly incinerated by the intense sunlight. The Doctor and Rose return to the main hall, where the Doctor mentions he wants to check the control room. The tree-like lady approaches, mistaking Rose for the Doctor's wife or some mistress, which the Doctor quickly denies. Rose comments that they can take some time to get to know each other better, and the Doctor, arm in arm with the tree lady, heads toward the control room. As they enter a dimly lit corridor full of cables, the robots that were crawling everywhere suddenly scatter. Along the way, the Doctor asks who's in charge of the spaceship. The tree lady explains that the vessel belongs to the Foundation, but there are no crew members. The entire ship is computer-operated, and the Foundation trusts their computer is foolproof. The doctor remarks if they're in trouble, no one's coming to save them. The tree lady, reminiscing, mentions that Earth has nurtured countless life forms, including her ancestors from its rainforests. She then asks the doctor about his ancestors, but her sensors can't identify his lineage and even suggest that he doesn't exist. Busy unlocking a door, the doctor ignores her comment. She shrugs, stating that while her machines may not recognize him, she does, and they continue hand in hand. Meanwhile, Rose is chatting with Cassandra, who reveals that she used to be a boy in her youth. When Rose asks where everyone else went, Cassandra explains that most people left for other planets and became mixed races, but she is the last pure-blooded human. Despite undergoing over 700 surgeries, Rose tells Cassandra that she would rather die than live like that. Cassandra, now little more than a stretched face, bounces slightly like a trampoline, declaring herself the last human on this spaceship. Rose, disturbed, walks away, only to run into a group of black-clad figures in the corridor. One of them knocks her out with a single blow. After the doctor and the tree lady open the door, they find the small robots. The doctor uses his sonic screwdriver to scan them, realizing it's more serious than they thought. In the main hall, Cassandra starts playing a somber tune, urging everyone to say goodbye to the birthplace of civilization. The doctor and the tree lady reach the control room, but the door is locked, and even the sonic screwdriver can't open it. The doctor assures her that there's another location where they can adjust the sunlight filter. Rose wakes up on the floor, just as a sunlight beam threatens to engulf her, but the doctor arrives in time, though he still can't open the door. In the main hall, the tree lady explains to the guests that the crew is likely dead, leaving everyone wondering what's happening. Even the event organizer has no idea. The doctor returns to the hall, announcing that someone brought the robots aboard. He sets one of the robots on the ground, and it scurries over to the black-clad figures. The doctor approaches them, dramatically pulling off one of their arms, revealing it to be a mechanical limb. The doctor explains that these black-clad figures are mere decoys, the real mastermind hiding elsewhere. The robot continues on its path until it reaches Cassandra. Dropping her act, Cassandra sneers that she's too late. She reveals that her little spiders, the small robots, have already taken over the ship's mainframe. Her plan was to disguise the spiders as gifts so they could bypass security and be delivered to everyone. With control over the ship, she intended to pose as a victim, claiming a massive insurance payout to maintain her perfect skin. Now exposed, she moves to Plan B, detonating the robots, collecting a bounty from her enemies on board, and escaping with her two caretakers using her psychic abilities. Desperately, the passengers look for crew members, but of course there are none left. The doctor explains there's one last solution. They need to manually activate the ship's restoration switch. The doctor and the tree lady head into a corridor lined with spinning fan blades, with temperatures rising rapidly. With her help, the doctor maneuvers through the fans, but the intense heat overwhelms her and she catches fire. At the last fan, which is spinning too fast without her help, the doctor focuses deeply, recalling his past, and takes a single step to leap through. He activates the self-repair switch, generating a protective shield around the ship just as Earth begins to explode. Fortunately, the doctor is one step ahead and the shield activates in time. The passengers are saved, though the tree lady has turned to ashes. Rose also escapes once the ship's repairs are complete. In the main hall, the doctor informs the tree lady's companions of her passing. He explains that Cassandra's teleportation device requires an energy source, meaning there must be an energy supply unit that can be reversed. He shatters the ostrich egg Cassandra had presented, revealing an energy sphere inside, and uses it to reverse the teleport, bringing Cassandra back. Unfazed, she declares herself a god and tells them they've passed her test and can join her exclusive club of humanity. The doctor, unimpressed, retorts that she had murdered so many people. Cassandra counters, saying it depends on his definition of people. However, her confidence quickly fades as the high temperatures start drying out her skin, with her caretakers nowhere in sight. Unable to watch, Rose pleads with the doctor to help her, but he solemnly replies that everything has its time. Moments later, Cassandra bursts into onion pieces. Rose stands at a window lamenting how, in the face of Earth's destruction, everyone was too busy saving themselves to witness the beauty of its end. The doctor brings Rose to a bustling street, explaining she thought everything would last forever. but everything fades. His own planet was destroyed just like Earth because they lost a star war. He reveals his identity as the last of the Time Lords, forever traveling alone. Rose reassures him he's not alone since she's here with him. The Doctor warns her of the dangers for her to travel with him. Rose, undeterred, replies that she doesn't mind. The scene shifts to the two arriving in a secluded corner of a city in the TARDIS. Rose comments that for someone like the Doctor who can travel freely through time and space, it must be lonely and hard to stop moving. She then heads for the door, ready to step into the past timeline. However, the Doctor quickly stops her, pointing out that her modern 21st century clothing would cause quite a stir. So they both head back inside the TARDIS to change into period-appropriate attire. Elsewhere in an old castle, an elderly butler and a young boy are mourning the recent passing of the boy's grandmother. After the butler leaves, the boy stays alone with his grandmother's body, but unexpectedly, her face glows with a bluish light and she opens her eyes, coming back to life. She immediately grabs the boy by the throat. Hearing the struggle from the next room, the butler rushes in to help free the boy, attempting to seal the grandmother's body back inside her coffin. However, the resurrected grandmother is incredibly strong, tossing off the coffin lid, knocking down the butler and escaping into the snow outside. Her face still glowing, she howls like a ghoul as she wanders away. Afterwards, the butler summons a maid and tells her another one has gotten loose. The maid replies that they'll need help. However, the butler insists she should try using her abilities first, as they'll be in big trouble if things escalate. Concentrating, the maid seems to sense something, mentioning that the grandmother may have gone to meet a great figure. The scene shifts to one of history's greatest writers, Charles Dickens, who's massaging his temples. A man reminds him it's time for him to go on stage. Dickens, somewhat dispirited, remarks that once again it's Christmas and he's performing alone, stuck in repetition. Even the greatest imaginations run dry at times, but he begrudgingly prepares to go on stage. The Doctor sees Rose dressed in her period costume and compliments her, saying she looks beautiful. Rose beams, excited to open the TARDIS door and step into history. As they stroll hand in hand through the snowy Christmas scene, the butler and maid arrive nearby, setting the stage for their meeting. On stage, Dickens is narrating a Christmas tale, unaware that the resurrected grandmother, her face glowing blue, is fixated on him from the audience. As his story builds, her face shines brighter, catching the attention of the audience, who start screaming in terror. Dickens initially thinks it's part of a stage trick, but the grandmother stands up, the blue glow on her face transforming into a spectral mist spreading through the theater. Frightened, the audience flees, but Dickens tries to reassure them, insisting it's just an illusion. However, the commotion draws the Doctor's attention from outside, and soon, Dickens, the butler, the maid, and the time travel duo all converge in the theater. Dickens initially suspects the Doctor is responsible for the chaos, but the Doctor urgently asks what just happened. Amid the confusion, the butler and maid take the opportunity to retrieve the grandmother's body. Rose gives chase, but when the butler realizes they might be discovered, he sneaks up and knocks Rose out, loading her into a Ferrari carriage along with the grandmother. Back in the theater, the Doctor notices the blue mist drifting toward a gas lamp and realizes there's a connection to the gas supply. He rushes outside just in time to see the butler's carriage departing. Dickens, still pursuing the Doctor for answers, ends up in the same Ferrari carriage. With no time to explain, the Doctor pulls Dickens into the carriage with him, and together they give chase. In the carriage, the driver asks Dickens if he should throw the Doctor out. But as soon as the Doctor hears it's Dickens, he gets excited, saying he's a huge fan and has read all of Dickens's novels. Dickens, delighted by the praise, lets the Doctor stay, though he doesn't quite understand what fan means, thinking it's a type of fan. The Doctor dismisses the conversation about novels, saying finding the woman he brought with him is more important. Dickens agrees and tells the driver to speed up. Meanwhile, the butler and maid place Rose on a sofa. The butler plans to call the Catholic Church for an exorcism, but the Doctor and Dickens arrive, and the maid goes to deal with them. The Doctor notices something strange with the gas lamps, sensing something's wrong. Rose wakes up to see another wave of blue mist flowing into the young master's body in the coffin, reviving him. The young master lunges at her, causing Rose to scream in a chicken voice and flee for her chicken life. The Doctor hears Rose's cries through the walls and bursts in with Dickens. The Doctor saves Rose from the revived corpse and asks it what it wants. The corpse says they've failed and are trapped, begging the Doctor to help them. The blue mist then leaves the body and vanishes. The group gathers in the living room, and Rose angrily confronts the butler, who insists it isn't his fault, but rather the house's fault. He explains that the dead started coming back to life 3 months ago, and he has no control over it. Strangely, each revived body seems to be fulfilling unfinished tasks from their past life. Dickens remains skeptical, so the doctor explains that the phenomenon is caused by a rift, a tear in time and space, through which all sorts of ghost stories and paranormal activity have emerged. Dickens heads to the room where the bodies are kept, looking for a hidden mechanism. The doctor catches up, telling him there's no need to search further, especially since he's seen the blue mist. Dickens, feeling despondent, asks if everything he thought he knew about the world is wrong. He wonders if in that way, what was the point of his life? The doctor reassures him, saying his understanding wasn't entirely wrong. There's just a lot more to learn. Elsewhere, Rose and the maid chat, getting along well until the maid accidentally mentions knowing about Rose's father's death. Rose becomes suspicious since she never told her about it. The maid uses her psychic abilities to read Rose's mind and learn about the present day. When she sees an image of a wolf, she recoils in fear, taking a few steps back. The doctor asks the maid if her psychic abilities have been harder to control recently. She admits hearing whispers every night. The doctor explains that she grew up near the rift, becoming part of it over time. Now the doctor knows what to do. They need to conduct a seance. Though Dickens is strongly opposed to such superstitious nonsense, they all eventually gather, holding hands in a circle, beginning a mechanical seance. Under the maid's guidance, the blue mist reappears, forming a ring around them. The doctor encourages her, reminding her that she's in control, not the mist. Empowered by his words, the maid successfully shapes the mist into a humanoid form, leaving both the butler and Dickens speechless. Through the maid, the blue mist communicates with the doctor, asking him to take the maid to the rift so their entire species can pass through. They explain that they once had physical bodies, but they were destroyed in the Time War, and upon discovering that Earth's inhabitants discard their dead bodies, they found an opportunity to inhabit these vessels. Rose feels uneasy about this idea, but the doctor counters, saying it is not wrong to save a species after all. The blue mist then dissipates, and the maid collapses to the ground. The doctor explains to Rose and the others that these aliens are like foreigners who have found their path blocked from one place to another. Only a few can cross, so they now need the maid as a medium to open the rift and establish a connection for the others to pass through. Rose vehemently opposes the doctor's plan, arguing that the maid shouldn't have to sacrifice herself for his cause and that it's disrespectful to let corpses walk around. The doctor, however, firmly states that different species have different moral standards, and if Rose can't accept that, she's welcome to return home. The maid, now awake, says she understands her purpose. She recalls hearing whispers since she was young, which she once believed to be protective spirits. The doctor suggests finding the weakest point of the house, the place most haunted by spirits. The butler suggests it must be the morgue. The group heads to the morgue, where Rose insists that the aliens have failed because bodies don't just wander around freely in the 21st century. But the doctor argues that time is constantly changing, and things may be different when they return. Just then, a misty blue spirit materializes as a young boy and praises the doctor, revealing the weak point's location. The maid steps forward, prepared to connect with the rift. Rose tries to dissuade her, but the maid is resolute, and the connection begins. One by one, the blue spirits pass through the maid's mouth, crossing over from another realm. However, the boy's face suddenly shifts, turning red and menacing, revealing his true identity. The doctor accuses him of deceiving them, but the boy admits it, saying they need billions of bodies. He warns it's too late to stop them. The spirits now automatically seek bodies to possess, and here in the morgue, they're spoiled for choice. Even the butler is attacked and possessed by a corpse. The doctor urges the maid to stop, but under the circumstances, she may no longer have control. The group is forced into a corner, finding temporary shelter behind an iron door. Meanwhile, Dickens sneaks up to the top. He realizes that as long as there's a gas lamp, the blue mist has no escape. During the chase, Dickens notices the spirits seem to fear the gas. Rose, scared, exclaims that she was born in the 21st century and shouldn't die here. The doctor replies that time is twisted. She very well could die here because this place's past is her future. Resolving to fight to the end, the two share their last thoughts before preparing for a final stand. Finally, Dickens suggests filling the room with gas since the creatures are gaseous. If the room is saturated with gas, it will force them to separate from their hosts, much like squeezing venom out. His plan works. The blue mist is expelled from the bodies. The doctor urges the maid to send them away while she has the chance. Realizing the opportunity, the maid attempts it, but the boy's will is too strong and she struggles. The doctor reminds her of everything she saw in Rose's mind earlier, emphasizing that humanity will have no future if the rift isn't closed now. Resolving to trap them all, the maid takes out a box of matches. The doctor, understanding her intent, gently thanks her and then quickly runs out. With a strike of the match, the mansion explodes. Outside, the doctor explains to the others that the maid was already dead the moment she connected to the rift. Rose, in disbelief, says it's impossible. Dickens remarks that many things in this world are beyond imagination. Rose reflects, saying that a single maid saved the world. As the group prepares to leave, Dickens admits that he now realizes family is the most important thing and that there's still so much he doesn't know. So he needs to write these stories down. He asks the doctor if his books will be popular in the future, to which the doctor assures him they will live on forever. As the doctor and Rose board the TARDIS, Rose asks why there are no blue ghosts in Dickens's books. The doctor reluctantly explains that Dickens will pass away in a week, but his works will be remembered forever. And then, before Dickens's very eyes, the TARDIS vanishes. Dickens laughs heartily, quoting, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." With the familiar sound of the TARDIS, the doctor and Rose return to London. Thanks to the TARDIS's ability to travel through time and space, while it feels like Rose has been gone for several days, in reality, she was only gone for 12 hours from that day. Rose asks the doctor to wait while she quickly informs her mom. However, the doctor notices missing person posters for Rose on a nearby pole and realizes something is wrong. In a panic, he runs to find her. Rose's mom, Jackie, is stunned to see her and can only hold her, speechless with shock. The doctor rushes over to explain that he miscalculated. Rose hasn't been gone for 12 hours, but an entire year. Jackie doesn't believe Rose's explanation and demands to know where she's been. Rose, frustrated, can't exactly tell her. The doctor steps in to defend Rose, saying he hired her as his companion. Jackie assumes the doctor is some con man preying on young women, slaps him, then clings tightly to Rose, terrified of losing another loved one after Rose's father passed away. Later, the doctor and Rose chat on the rooftop. The doctor jokes that he can't bring her mom along or it'll become a family road trip, and mentions that in 900 years, no one's ever dared slap him. Rose is surprised to notice he is at least 900 years old. She reflects on how she's seen the vastness of the universe and time, but can't share it with anyone. Just then, a loud horn sounds, and a giant beetle-shaped spaceship flies over their heads. It appears to be on the verge of crashing, wobbling unsteadily and spewing black smoke, even scraping Big Ben before finally crash-landing in the river. Rose remarks that she is not the only one who knows anymore. The two race towards the crash site, but the city is in chaos and traffic is gridlocked, making it impossible for them to get through. Rose asks the doctor if he recognizes the spaceship or knows anything about it. The doctor feigns ignorance, saying he's just excited to witness history along with everyone else. When Rose suggests using the TARDIS to get there, the doctor quips, saying London is crowded enough with one spaceship in the middle. Just then, a news broadcast announces a national emergency, though people are urged to stay calm. A reporter explains that a body has been found, and the military is transporting it to the nearest hospital by the river, while the government is refusing to answer certain questions. A military official arrives at the hospital and questions the doctor, asking if this alien body is real. The doctor confirms, saying he's even taken X-rays to prove it's not fake, before locking the body in a secure cabinet. Meanwhile, on the news, a reporter announces that the Prime Minister has gone missing. A government assistant intercepts a member of parliament as he arrives at the building, telling him they need to discuss something. However, a woman named Harriet stops them, insisting she had an appointment with the Prime Minister. The assistant brushes her off, telling the parliament member that he's now the acting Prime Minister. The parliament member is led into a conference room where two others are waiting, the blue-suited woman and a burly man. The assistant hands the parliament member a document, explaining that it's an emergency response plan for an alien invasion. With that, the three head to a separate room and they burst out laughing, making strange sounds as they do. Later that evening, Rose asks the doctor if he plans to do something now that aliens have arrived. The doctor argues that this isn't an invasion, it's just a crashed spaceship. He says humans can finally handle this on their own, preparing to leave. Rose asks if he's really going to leave her behind, and to her surprise, the doctor hands her a TARDIS key, a deep sign of trust. After saying goodbye, he departs. Mickey, who's watching from his balcony, dashes downstairs to catch him but arrives a moment too late. When the doctor starts up the TARDIS, it acts up, seemingly malfunctioning. The doctor scrambles to get it under control. Meanwhile, Harriet approaches the assistant, telling him she has an important proposal for the Parliament member. The Parliament member and his associates emerge from the meeting, and Harriet pitches her plan for a hospital construction project, but the Parliament member dismisses her rudely, telling her not to waste his time. After they leave, Harriet sneaks her proposal into the Parliament member's briefcase and accidentally finds the alien invasion emergency document, reacting with shock. Back at the hospital, the doctor is working, but he hears strange noises coming from the alien's cabinet. Summoning his courage, he approaches it cautiously. The TARDIS lands at the hospital, and when the doctor opens a door, he's met by a room full of soldiers who raise their guns at him. Meanwhile, the doctor reaches the cabinet, where the sounds are growing louder, and the door suddenly springs open, causing him to scream. Hearing the scream, the doctor rushes over with the soldiers. When they arrive, the doctor is on the floor, muttering, "It's alive." The cabinet door swings open, but whatever was inside has escaped. The soldiers search the room, and the doctor asks the doctor what the creature looked like. Just then, noises come from a corner, and the doctor realizes the creature hasn't gone far, telling the soldiers to stay alert as he approaches. Turning around, the doctor spots a creature resembling a pigman hybrid and shouts for them not to shoot. But soldiers outside don't hear him and fire, hitting the pigman. Angrily, the doctor explains that the pigman was simply terrified. Meanwhile, Harriet overhears the sounds of their return and hides in a wardrobe. The Parliament member and his group enter the room, with the military officials speculating that the Prime Minister's disappearance was likely the work of aliens. But the Parliament member and the other two ignore him, laughing eerily instead. The military official, frustrated, warns them that he'll use his authority to set things straight. The Parliament member smirks and mockingly says he's so scared. Then, the three of them unzip a seam on their foreheads, revealing eerie blue light inside. Harriet watches in terror from the wardrobe, realizing the aliens have been on Earth all along, cleverly disguised. Back at the hospital, the doctor remarks that this creature isn't a full alien. It's a hybrid of a human and a pig, placed aboard the spaceship and deliberately crashed. The doctor notes that such technology doesn't exist on Earth. He concludes it's an alien using alien technology to fake an alien, adding that there must be an ulterior motive behind it all. At Rose's home, Mickey complains about Rose's disappearance, saying that he's her boyfriend and he's been questioned by the police 5 times because of it. He says the doctor just left, so he's probably abandoned her. Rose, however, shows him her TARDIS key and insists the doctor wouldn't leave her behind. Just then, the key starts glowing, signaling the TARDIS's arrival. Rose, Jackie, and Mickey step inside the TARDIS. The doctor explains to Rose that the whole situation is fake. Jackie, overwhelmed, returns home to process everything. As she lies in bed, the TV broadcasts a message urging citizens to call in any sightings of aliens. Jackie immediately calls the hotline, reporting everything she knows. Meanwhile, an alarm goes off in government headquarters and a large screen shows that the doctor has arrived as he works on the TARDIS. He tells Mickey to stay out of the way if he doesn't understand. Mickey confides to Rose that this past year has been hell because everyone thought he killed her. Now that Rose is back, he asks if they can get back together. The doctor interrupts, noting that the spaceship has been circling Earth, meaning it actually launched from Earth itself. In government headquarters, the military official has also joined the alien faction. The assistant rushes in, announcing the doctor's appearance. According to protocol, the doctor is an expert in alien affairs, and they need his help. The doctor, watching from the TARDIS's monitor, sees that UNIT is now mobilizing. UNIT is an organization in the doctor's world dedicated to handling alien and unusual phenomena. To stay incognito, the doctor decides to drive over, but as soon as he steps out of the TARDIS, he's surrounded by people from all sides. He's taken to Downing Street, where the authorities are eager to resolve the issue. Meanwhile, the police arrive at Jackie's home to search for evidence, but this police officer seems a bit odd. At the other location, Rose meets Harriet, who asks if the doctor can truly handle the alien crisis. Before she can finish, she bursts into tears, clearly traumatized by a prior experience. She reveals everything she knows to Rose, even showing her an alien casing she found, something the aliens apparently discarded. As Rose searches for more clues, a body falls out of a closet. The assistant recognizes it as the missing Prime Minister. At the conference, the military official attempts to frame the incident as a human conspiracy. The doctor counters, revealing that satellite data from the North Sea detected a signal, and that's when the aliens appeared and the Prime Minister went missing, all seemingly to distract them and set a trap for them. Realizing the Doctor has figured them out, the aliens drop the pretense and prepare to attack. They reveal their true forms, tall creatures with green skin, black eyes, and massive claws. Introducing themselves as the Slitheen, one of them grabs the assistant, while Jackie, back at home, is cornered by the alien disguised as a police officer. One of the Parliament members activates a device, sending an electric current through all the specialists. The Doctor notes that the device might kill humans, but not him. He takes hold of the current, redirecting it to shock the alien. Surprisingly, the aliens seem to share a link, so when one is electrocuted, it affects all of them. Mickey arrives just in time to save Jackie. Though the electric shock isn't lethal to the aliens, they disable the current and start hunting down anyone with knowledge of their plans. The Doctor rushes out to find guards, but the aliens are already fully disguised again. They accuse the Doctor of being behind it all. Realizing he's outnumbered, the Doctor makes a break for it, though he's quickly cornered. The military official orders the soldiers to execute the Doctor, but he manages to slip into an arriving elevator. As it ascends, the Parliament member and the military official order the building to be sealed off and the Doctor to be shot on sight. Then they rejoin the other alien who's been pursuing Rose. Things are intense on Rose's side. Though she tried hiding, the aliens seem able to detect her by scent because she's too smelly, and they quickly find her behind the curtains. Harriet appears from behind, drawing the aliens' attention. The Doctor arrives and sprays the aliens with a fire extinguisher, allowing Rose and Harriet to escape. They head for the room with the restricted ordnance. The three aliens pursue quickly. Thinking fast, the Doctor grabs a bottle of alcohol and claims he can use his sonic screwdriver to triple the alcohol's flammability, proposing that they all go down together. He starts negotiating with the aliens, who reveal that Slitheen isn't their species but rather their family name. They explain they came to Earth for a business deal. But then, the alien leader suddenly realizes the Doctor is tricking them. The Doctor feigns innocence and claims the room is equipped with emergency protocols. Right on cue, steel walls descend, separating the Doctor and his group from the aliens. While safe for now, they are essentially trapped. The aliens decide not to waste time with them, choosing to continue with their plans. The aliens gather other disguised operatives at Downing Street. The military official instructs his team to prepare for a global announcement, and then they head upstairs to remove their human suits and ready themselves. Back home, Jackie and Mickey discuss the situation, with Mickey pointing out that the Doctor always brings trouble, but is the only one who knows what to do. Jackie says he can't leave, as the police outside are waiting to kill her. In the conference room, Rose asks how the aliens can fit into human skins. The Doctor explains that they have a device on their necks to compress their bodies, but they still can't fit into very slim bodies. Rose suggests they detonate a nuclear bomb to get rid of them all. Harriet rejects this, saying nuclear activation requires UN authorization codes. The Doctor deduces that the aliens are here for resources, likely a business venture. Just then, Rose's phone rings. It's Mickey, who has taken a picture of one of the aliens he encountered while helping Jackie. He sends it to the Doctor, who asks Mickey to log on to UNIT's website to check the North Sea signal. Jackie, on the line, asks the Doctor if her daughter is really safe with him. But just then, the police arrive at the door. Mickey grabs a cricket bat, ready to defend himself. The Doctor says that to understand the aliens' weaknesses, they need to identify which planet they're from. Rose assists by helping the Doctor rule out various options based on the alien characteristics until they narrow it down to a specific planet. The Doctor instructs Mickey to go to the kitchen and use vinegar against the aliens. In the kitchen, Jackie pours a bottle of vinegar over one of the aliens, causing it to split open, a highly satisfying sight. The Doctor, Rose, and Harriet celebrate with a toast, but because the aliens share a neural link, they immediately sense when one of their own is killed. The Parliament member heads to the global conference podium and declares that aliens have murdered Earth's specialists, with their spaceship currently over Britain. He warns that humanity faces an existential threat and urges the UN to authorize nuclear retaliation. He unilaterally declares a war between Earth and the aliens. The Doctor comments that this declaration is nonsense and that it's only meant to incite human fear. He opens the door and questions the aliens on their real agenda. They reveal their intent to obtain nuclear weapons, instigate World War III, and drive humanity to self-destruction. Once humans are extinct, they can auction off an unclaimed Earth. The signal detected earlier is just an advertisement to potential buyers, waiting for Earth's annihilation. The Doctor offers them one last chance to stop, warning of severe consequences if they proceed. The aliens mock him, doubting he has the power to stop them. The doctor closes the door with a grave expression. At this moment, the world's eyes are on the United Nations, waiting to see if they will grant permission. Jackie calls the doctor, asking if there's any other way. The doctor replies that there is, but it could be dangerous for Rose. Unfazed, Rose urges the doctor to proceed with his plan. The doctor is taken aback by Rose's unwavering trust, even though she doesn't know the details of the plan. Jackie tries her best to dissuade the doctor, but Rose has made up her mind. Harriet, representing the people, orders the doctor to go ahead. News reports indicate that the UN is ready to make a decision at any moment. The doctor instructs Mickey to hack into the Royal Navy's submarine system and launch a missile aimed at Downing Street. Simultaneously, the UN votes to allow the UK to use nuclear weapons. Soldiers at Downing Street detect the incoming missile and quickly evacuate. The missile strikes, completely destroying the building and wiping out the aliens. The doctor and his team remain safe because they are in a sealed metal room. Another parliament member walks outside, shouting triumphantly that the crisis is over and thanking God for the people. The doctor then remembers she is destined to become a future prime minister, serving 3 terms. Rose finally makes it home and embraces Jackie. Jackie starts to warm up to the doctor, asking Rose about his favorite food and suggesting they invite him over for dinner. The doctor calls Rose's phone, asking if she's ready to start traveling again. Rose mentions her mom is preparing dinner for him and even a drink. The doctor doesn't answer directly, instead painting a picture of the enchanting sights they'll see during their travels. Unable to resist, Rose starts packing her things, clearly ready to set off once more. The doctor has a quick chat with Mickey, who's come to appreciate him a bit more. The doctor hands Mickey a disc, instructing him to erase any trace of their actions, and even invites Mickey to join them on the journey. Mickey, however, declines, finding the idea a bit too strange. Rose arrives, explaining she hasn't actually had dinner with her mother yet. She asks Mickey one last time if he wants to come along, emphasizing that the TARDIS is quite spacious. The doctor steps in, telling Mickey to head home and have fun instead. Rose reassures them both, telling them not to worry and she'll time travel and be back in just 10 seconds. She heads into the TARDIS with her belongings, and 10 seconds later, as expected, she's not back. With the familiar sound of the TARDIS, the Doctor and Rose step out and find themselves in an underground location in North America in the year 2012. The Doctor quickly realizes they're in a massive museum filled with various artifacts. Among the collection, he spots an old enemy, the severed head of a Cyberman. The Cybermen were once human, but gradually began to replace their bodies with metal and cybernetic components. Suddenly, an alarm blares, and a group of heavily armed soldiers appears, surrounding the Doctor and Rose with their guns drawn. A private jet called the Wolf descends. A capitalist who exudes authority walks out, flanked by his underlings. He remarks that the current president isn't great and suggests they should replace him. One of his men cautiously advises him to reconsider. The capitalist dismisses the advice and promptly fires the man, ordering his other followers to drag him away for brainwashing and exile to a state. A stunning secretary approaches the capitalist. He asks her opinion on the president. She finds the president amusing, which pleases the capitalist. Another subordinate reports that they've caught 2 intruders. The capitalist isn't interested in the intruders, focusing instead on his latest pet. The secretary calls downstairs, where a figure on a blue monitor appears to be torturing something, its agonized screams echoing throughout the room. In the capitalist's office, he's toying with an alien artifact. The Doctor and Rose are brought in, and the Doctor realizes the capitalist is clueless about the object, explaining that it's actually an alien musical instrument. The capitalist had been using it wrong, so the Doctor picks it up and demonstrates. The capitalist feels discontent, and the two exchange some sharp words rather than kisses. From a nearby whisper, we learn the capitalist has such power because he controls the internet, which in turn controls information and public opinion, making him virtually omnipotent. The capitalist, intrigued by the Doctor's confidence, invites him to view his collection. The collection includes both dead and living entities, more akin to containment than a simple exhibition. The capitalist leads the Doctor to an underground area. The man the secretary was speaking to earlier joins them, instructing the Doctor to put on protective gear, as the last person who touched that thing turned to ashes. The Doctor shrugs, saying he won't touch it, and proceeds into the room. The capitalist locks the door behind him, ordering his men not to open it until there are results. Inside the room, the Doctor speaks to a faint blue light in the darkness, saying he's the Doctor and he's here to help. But the creature seems to react to the mention of the Doctor, as if activated. The lights turn on, revealing a metal canister that begins chanting the exterminate word. It turns out that the creature the capitalist had been keeping is none other than a Dalek, one of the Doctor's deadliest foes. The Daleks are a race of the most dangerous and malevolent beings in the universe, capable only of hatred, which they consider the only true emotion. Despite their somewhat simple, almost cutesy appearance, they are by design one of the most terrifying species in the cosmos, and one of the Doctor's greatest enemies. The Doctor was in a rare state of panic, wanting to leave the room immediately. The Dalek aimed its weapon at the Doctor, but nothing happened. The Doctor chuckled, realizing that this Dalek was old and broken, with its weapon systems failing. The Doctor then began to mock the Dalek mercilessly, questioning what purpose it could possibly serve in its current scrap-like condition. The Dalek replied that it was a soldier, programmed to follow orders, and it was waiting for a command. The Doctor responded that there were no commands for it anymore, and its entire species had been wiped out, and that he made it happen himself. The Dalek asked if the Doctor was the one who destroyed their race. For a moment, the Doctor seemed nostalgic and pensive, because indeed he had done it, and his own species, the Time Lords, had also perished alongside the Daleks in the Time War between the Time Lords and the Dalek race. During the war, the Doctor's previous incarnation, known as the War Doctor, sacrificed immensely to end the war, leading to both the Daleks and the Time Lords being nearly annihilated. The Dalek remarked that they were now the same. They were the last of their kind. The Doctor replied he was nothing like it, but now he knew what to do with it. Then he activated the electric shock system to electrocute the Dalek. Back to the story. Seeing the situation inside going south, the capitalist immediately brought in his men to drag the Doctor away. He then tried to make the Dalek talk, but the Dalek remained unresponsive. Growing frustrated, the capitalist ordered his men to use any means necessary to get the Dalek to speak. Meanwhile, Adam, the young man who had earlier boasted about the capitalist's influence, was chatting with Rose in another room. Unaware of Rose's identity, he assumed she was just an ordinary person and explained that there was indeed a multitude of alien life across the universe. He also mentioned that he was something of a genius himself, which is why the capitalist recruited him. Rose kept her cool and played along. She said she wanted to see the creature downstairs. Adam pulled up the security feed of the Daleks' containment room, where they could see it being tortured. Rose couldn't stand it and immediately set out to intervene. Inside the elevator, the Doctor warned the capitalist that the Dalek was incredibly dangerous, fueled only by hatred. However, the capitalist, obsessed with alien technology, dismissed the warning, eager only to study the Daleks' technology. He had also deduced from their conversation that the Doctor was an alien himself. Shortly afterward, the Doctor was taken to another room for examination, where the capitalist discovered the Doctor had 2 hearts and 2 distinct blood systems. Ecstatic, the capitalist remarked that he got himself another patent. The alien technologies the capitalist had collected weren't merely for display. He intended to reverse engineer them, patenting advanced tech for personal profit. For instance, he had already discovered a cure for the common cold, but chose not to release it, instead earning money from endless treatments. The Doctor remarked that the capitalist was worse than the Daleks. The Doctor warned him that the Dalek was highly dangerous and had already awakened upon seeing him, posing a threat to everyone. But the capitalist remained unconcerned, overconfident in his security measures. Adam led Rose into Dalek's chamber. As Rose approached, she felt a flicker of familiarity and asked how he was feeling. Dalek replied that he was in agony, tormented, yet those around him still feared him. He asked if she feared him. Rose said she wasn't afraid and asked what she could do for him. Dalek lamented that he was dying, but felt a strange comfort in meeting a human who wasn't afraid of him. He was the last of his kind and would die in solitude. Feeling pity for Dalek, Rose reached out to touch him, but that moment resulted in Dalek absorbing Rose's genes for genetic reconstruction. Breaking free from his restraints, Dalek killed the man who had tormented him. Rose and Adam seized the chance to escape as the facility's red alert blared. The Doctor realized something was off with Dalek and warned the capitalist to release him now. The capitalist complied, recognizing the urgency. He stated that the password for his door was highly complex and impossible to breach easily. However, Dalek used his tools to crack the code with millions of combinations per second, breaching it in mere seconds. Other soldiers fired at Dalek, but their efforts were futile. He approached a surveillance screen, absorbing energy and internet information from the entire West Coast, repairing his injuries and gaining knowledge of the outside world. The secretary commanded the soldiers to surround Dalek, but their bullets slowed to a halt before vanishing. In contrast, Dalek's beams effortlessly took down soldiers. The capitalist instructed them to stop firing, not wanting to mar his perfect collection, but his words fell on deaf ears as the soldiers were swiftly eliminated. The doctor urged the secretary to arm the remaining personnel, offering them a fighting chance. As Rose and the others retreated to the staircase, Rose realized it was their lucky break. Dalek's canister had no legs and couldn't ascend, but Dalek laughed, saying he can't climb stairs, but he can fly. Stunned, Rose and the others watched as a soldier urged them to flee, staying behind to hold off Dalek, who ultimately perished. The doctor explained that regular bullets couldn't penetrate Dalek's defense field. Concentrated fire might breach it, specifically targeting his eye stalks, his weak points. Rose and Adam rushed in with Dalek close behind. When Dalek locked eyes with Rose for a few moments, Rose sensed he recognized her. Soldiers attacked from all sides, seemingly ignoring the doctor's command for concentrated fire. Dalek soared up, shattering the smoke detector, causing rain to pour in, and then electrifying the water to clear the room. Fearful, the capitalist tried to escape, but with all the power gone, there was no way out unless he activated the backup power and sealed the area. Dalek communicated through the surveillance screen, revealing that Rose was a time traveler. Analyzing Rose's information had given him a second chance, yet he couldn't locate his kind or receive orders. He concluded that without commands, he must follow the first directive, to conquer and destroy. The doctor countered that his entire race was gone, and what this all would mean now. Dalek insisted since he was the last one of his kind, he must survive. The entire area went into lockdown due to a power shortage, necessitating the gate's early closure. Rose and the others ran toward the closing gate, but unfortunately, Rose was a step too late and didn't make it through. She reassured the doctor she didn't regret traveling with him, but regretted she just ran a little slow. Dalek arrived, glaring at Rose and shouting the exterminate word. The doctor thought Dalek had killed Rose and angrily confronted the capitalist, saying he could have dealt with Dalek earlier, but because of his obsession with collecting, so many have died, including Rose. The capitalist defensively replied he only wanted to touch the stars. The doctor saw through his lie, saying that he just wanted to drag those stars down, bury them in the ground, and put labels on them and sell them. In reality, Dalek hadn't killed Rose. Instead, he claimed he could feel Rose's fear, then began wildly firing at the walls, puzzled by his unexpected emotions. Dalek shouted she gave him life. At that moment, the doctor realized Rose was still alive. Dalek stood beside Rose, threatening the doctor to open the gate, forcing him to finally comply. Adam led the doctor to retrieve his personal stash of weapons, where the doctor chose a large gun, ready for a showdown with Dalek. In the elevator, Dalek began to question his existence, wondering if he can't kill, then what's the point of his existence? When the doors opened, Dalek approached the capitalist, demanding to know why he had tormented him. The capitalist backed away in fear, trying to explain. Rose stepped forward to stop Dalek, saying he didn't need to kill anyone else. Rose asked what he truly wanted, beyond killing. Dalek replied he wanted freedom. With that, Dalek blasted a hole in the ceiling, allowing a ray of sunlight to stream in. Then, his metal shell opened, revealing his true form, a hideous octopus-like creature. The doctor arrived, gun in hand, aimed at them. He demanded Rose step aside, but Rose replied the one pointing a gun at her now isn't Dalek. The doctor argued he had to avenge his people, but Rose urged him to really look at Dalek, saying all he wants is sunlight, leaving the doctor momentarily speechless, realizing he was becoming the opposition Rose had once faced. Dalek asked why they would continue to live and why he was the last one. The doctor responded that he was no longer entirely Dalek because Rose's genes had changed him. Dalek, aware of everything but viewing it as an illness, instructed Rose to order him to self-destruct. Rose agreed, and Dalek finally detonated himself. As a result of his actions, the secretary fully stripped the capitalist of his authority, erased his memory, and banished him to an unknown location. Rose then persuaded the doctor to allow Adam to join them on their travels, and the doctor reluctantly agreed. The scene shifts to the group landing on a space station in the year 200,000 as the familiar sound of the TARDIS echoes. Adam steps out, stunned by the incredible sights before him. The group finds themselves near a large window, looking out at Earth. The doctor explains that by this time, Earth has 5 moons, over 90 billion inhabitants, and countless life forms from across the galaxy orbiting around it. Adam is so shocked he faints on the spot, chills running down his spine to his butt. They wander into the station's bustling marketplace, filled with a lively crowd. An older man is selling cloned burgers. The doctor says they'll need money and goes to a machine to withdraw some currency, handing Adam a card, telling him to enjoy exploring with Rose. Meanwhile, he stops two sexy employees and asks where they exactly are. One of them explains they are on the 139th floor of the fifth moon, and the doctor takes the opportunity to pass himself off as someone from above using a special psychic paper. For instance, if the doctor shows it and says he's a police officer, others would see a police badge. The senior employee tells the doctor that if he can take her to the 500th floor, she'd be willing to do anything. Her job involves reporting various events, though most are fake news, similar to how today's clickbait accounts spread half-truths for views. She is, in a way, the news itself. The scene shifts, revealing that they are all being monitored by a mysterious white-haired man. He mutters that something is amiss, then moves toward a frost-covered man who seems to have been frozen for a long time, instructing him to conduct a security check because events are happening in the Empire without their oversight. Meanwhile, Rose and Adam are on a date outside, and Adam comments on how distant he feels from his family. Rose hands him her modified phone, suggesting he try calling home. Surprisingly, he reaches the answering machine, though no one picks up. The white-haired man observes this, declaring that the frozen man shouldn't be here and assigns him to continue tracking the doctor. The senior employee takes the doctor and the others to her workplace to show them what she does, hoping for his approval. They form a circle around her, and she sits on a chair in the center. A compartment on her head opens, and the others place their hands in front of molds while a blue light streams into the opening above her head. The doctor explains that this device compiles information from around the world into her mind, making her part of the machine's processing. Rose comments with all that data in her head she must be a genius, but the doctor corrects her, saying she's just a part of the machine. Those around her all have chips in their brains that aid in running the machine, and she won't remember anything afterward. The white-haired man continued to monitor the group, suspecting there might be a mole among them, the newbie girl accompanying the senior employee. Suddenly, the connection was cut off, and the newbie girl with the senior employee apologized, saying there seemed to be some interference. Meanwhile, the white-haired man spoke to a strange voice above him, his master. The white-haired man said he would promote the newbie girl immediately. In the room below, a screen appeared, and the senior employee began chanting, wishing for herself to be promoted, only to find that it was the newbie girl being promoted instead. The senior employee panicked, exclaiming that she had worked here for so long, only to see a newcomer get the promotion. The newbie girl was a bit bewildered, but pleased. Adam, however, sensed something was off and wanted to be alone for a bit. Rose handed him the TARDIS key, telling him he could use it to enter the TARDIS if he felt in danger, and the TARDIS would protect him. But Adam walked away with a mischievous smile. The newbie girl said her farewells and entered the elevator. The doctor remarked that it felt like a final goodbye. The senior employee then mentioned that no one who goes to the 500th floor has ever come back. The doctor felt uneasy and asked how one reaches the 500th floor. She replied that only those who receive a promotion get a key. Without it, there's no way up, and very few are ever promoted. The newbie girl finally reached the 500th floor, stepping out to find herself in a desolate, icy landscape with not a soul in sight. As soon as she exited, the elevator doors closed behind her, creating an eerie atmosphere. She began to explore, turning a corner to find the white-haired man. She hurriedly asked why there were so many bodies here. The white-haired man stopped her worries and asked her name. She answered her name is Suki. He then played her original self-introduction, shouting she is a liar. It turned out the footage revealed her true identity as an undercover anarchist. Realizing her cover was blown, Suki pulled a gun from her pocket and aimed it at him. The white-haired man laughed, unfazed. Suki accused them of corruptly monitoring people and deceiving everyone. She demanded to know who really controls the fifth moon. The white-haired man replied he was just an editor and his master saw everything. He told her to look up if she didn't believe him. Suki asked what that was. He replied that was her eternal master from the moment she was born. Suki fired a few shots, only to scream in terror as she realized the hopelessness of her situation. Adam entered the room with the large viewing window, placing his hand on the machine to absorb all available knowledge. Meanwhile, the doctor asked the senior employee if she had been to other floors. She replied, "Almost everyone here stayed on the first floor, but she went to another level once." The doctor then asked why there were no aliens around. She explained that there were many restrictive measures. The doctor deduced that this society was actually regressing and asked how long this place had existed. After a moment's thought, she replied, 91 years. While Adam was recording messages for his family about future events, the machine he was using suddenly stopped working, and he received a message instructing him to go to the 16th floor. When he arrived, he asked what had happened, and a woman told him his chip was broken so it couldn't read information. Adam confirmed, realizing this made sense as he didn't have a chip. The woman began explaining their chip implantation service to him. Adam still had the doctor's unlimited credit card and was hesitating. Meanwhile, the doctor hacked into the main system and noticed unusual temperature readings in the area. The white-haired man continued to monitor the doctor, while Suki had by then transformed into a frost-covered zombie. After some searching, the white-haired man discovered that there was no record of the doctor in the national database, almost as if he didn't exist, nor could he find any trace of Rose. Of course he couldn't, as neither of them were people of this time, and one wasn't human. Intrigued, the white-haired man decided to promote both of them. The doctor examined the wiring and discovered that something at the top floor was constantly radiating heat downwards, with all ventilation systems working at full capacity. Just then, he received his promotion code and he and Rose prepared to go to the 500th floor. Meanwhile, Adam couldn't resist the temptation and had a chip implanted, painless and seamless, and all it took to activate was a snap of his fingers. He tried it out in front of the mirror but ended up making himself sick. The doctor and Rose arrived on the 500th floor where they encountered the white-haired man. He remarked he had information on everyone, but the two of them didn't exist. Rose spotted Suki and tried to wake her, but the white-haired man informed her that Suki was working, with the chip in her brain operating at full capacity. Realizing the danger, the doctor attempted to leave, but they were blocked by zombie-like employees. The white-haired man said his master runs this place and they should meet him first. Looking up, they saw a massive creature on the ceiling, its face consisting only of a huge mouth filled with sharp teeth, roaring like a goose. The white-haired man explained this was his master. About 100 years ago, it gradually took control of humanity by controlling the fifth moon and dominating the news media. In essence, it rules human civilization. Meanwhile, Adam and the senior employee began their own plan. She hacked into the elevator, also making her way to the 500th floor. Adam found a workspace, sat in the center chair, and started absorbing information. The doctor and Rose were restrained by something akin to shackles. The white-haired man explained politics, economics, culture. All of these can be controlled through the media. When a group of people is unaware that they're enslaved, they are not truly enslaved. Rose argued that eventually someone would notice something was wrong. The man laughed, saying that chips in their brains allow him to monitor their thoughts. Any trace of doubt can be erased instantly. They're like livestock. He might not be able to do everything, but the creature needs him as well. It's too large and metabolizes rapidly, so it needs to expel a lot of heat. The entire fifth moon is essentially a massive life support system for it. The white-haired man turned to ask who they exactly were and what their goal was. Meanwhile, Adam was using the system to transmit messages to his family, and since the white-haired man controlled all systems and chips, he became aware of everything about the doctor, including that he was the last Time Lord and that the TARDIS key was in Adam's pocket. The white-haired man smirked that he could control everything now. At that moment, the senior employee reached the machine filled with corpses, and using her own consciousness, interrupted Adam's connection and disrupted the system of the fifth moon through her independent thought. The icy zombies froze in place, allowing the doctor and Rose to break free and make their escape. Due to the system's damage, the creature could no longer release heat effectively, causing the 500th floor to overheat. Realizing the situation was dire, the white-haired man decided to abandon ship and told his master he was quitting. However, Suki's residual consciousness clung to his leg, preventing his escape, and the creature exploded from the heat. The doctor successfully rescued the senior employee, and they all left the 500th floor together. Furious, the doctor took Adam's key and sent him back home. Knowing Adam had transmitted messages to his home phone, the doctor proceeded to erase the information. After all, one of the cardinal rules of time travel is not to alter the timeline, and 2/3 of the fifth moon's data could easily change the world and the current timeline. Adam protested, saying he couldn't just leave him like this. He still had a secondary chip implanted. One snap of his fingers and his head will blow up. Attempting to gain Rose's sympathy, Adam found her unmoved as she and the doctor departed. Just then, Adam's mother came home and, without thinking, snapped her fingers. The scene shifts to Jackie, showing a young Rose a photo of her father, Pete, explaining that he passed away in a car accident when she was little. She says that if he could see her now, he'd be so proud. Rose and the doctor discuss whether they can go back to a time when her father was still alive, if it doesn't break any rules. The doctor says her wish is his command, but warns her to be careful about what she wishes for. They arrive at the scene of her parents' wedding, hiding in the background to avoid being noticed. Rose recalls Jackie saying that her father was hit by a car that appeared out of nowhere and the driver fled before he could be caught. Rose expresses her wish to be with him in his final moments so he wouldn't die alone. The doctor reluctantly agrees, saying a quick goodbye won't harm anyone. The TARDIS then takes them to a specific time and place. Rose explains that her father had gone to get a vase as the wedding gift because Jackie always complained about that damned vase. Pete gets out of the car, only to be hit by an oncoming vehicle, breaking the vase. Rose stands frozen, speechless at the sight. The doctor urges her to go over to him, but Rose hesitates, overwhelmed with fear. Regret immediately consumes her as she realizes she can't let her father die alone. They travel back again, watching their earlier selves from behind a wall. The doctor tells her they can't intervene until their other selves leave. Pete arrives on time, gets out of the car, but this time, Rose can't hold back. She rushes forward, pulls her father away, tackling him to the ground, saving him from being hit. The vase remains intact, but suddenly the versions of themselves from the previous time disappear inexplicably. The doctor feels frustrated at the sight of that. Rose then explains things to her father, even telling him her name. Pete remarks that it's a coincidence since his daughter has the same name. He invites her to join him at the wedding, and Rose eagerly agrees. Meanwhile, strange, red-eyed creatures appear in the sky, and they return to Pete's home, where Rose feels nostalgic seeing the items her father once used, now lovingly preserved by her mother. Seeing the doctor's somber expression, Rose asks if something is wrong. The doctor explains that he had warned her about the time machine's rules before she boarded. Rose quickly apologizes, explaining she couldn't control herself. The doctor tells her that her actions have disrupted the timeline. Rose, however, points out that the doctor saves strangers all the time, so why couldn't she save her father, an ordinary man who wouldn't affect world events? The doctor reveals that his entire planet was destroyed and asks why she thinks he doesn't alter the past. Now, with someone living who wasn't meant to survive, the timeline has begun to fracture. Their argument escalates and Rose gives back the TARDIS key, parting ways with the doctor. But outside, red-eyed monsters are watching, drawing closer, and they mercilessly kill a man trimming flowers nearby. Rose was taking out the trash at home when Pete asked if she had a fight with her boyfriend. He commented that couples sometimes go through such phases. Rose, however, insisted that they were not a couple at all. Pete invited Rose to go for a walk with him. Inside the church, people began noticing that half the wedding guests were missing. The doctor, standing in front of the TARDIS, sensed something was off. When he opened the TARDIS door, he found that it had turned into a regular police box. Realizing Rose was in danger, he hurriedly ran out. As Pete drove Rose to the wedding venue, she gradually realized that her father was nothing like the hero her mother had described him as when she was young. He dabbled here and there, even pirated things, and the car's radio and Rose's phone started broadcasting messages from a different era, indicating a rift in time. Rose noticed that the car which killed her father seemed to be following them, and then it suddenly vanished into a time rift. At the wedding venue, a man in a suit commented on the phone that the wedding was a disaster, with half the guests missing. Jackie arrived with baby Rose, and Pete and Rose pulled up as well. The car that killed Pete emerged from the time rift again, prompting Rose to instinctively shout at her dad. Pete quickly swerved, narrowly avoiding a collision. He got out and asked if she had just called him Dad. Jackie, spotting Rose, jokingly thought Pete had found a new lover, not realizing she was actually looking at her future daughter. Rose, seeing both Jackie and baby herself, began to understand that her parents' marriage was not as perfect as she had been led to believe. In the playground, children playing noticed red-eyed monsters watching them. One boy sensed something was wrong, and suddenly everyone around him vanished, leaving him alone. After a brief argument, Jackie and Pete reconciled, and Rose smiled in relief. The boy then ran into the church, shouting that monsters were coming to eat everyone, but people brushed him off. Just then, the doctor appeared, urging everyone to get inside the church immediately. Rose looked up and saw a creature with bat wings and 4 claws just outside. It lunged toward her, but the doctor saved her just in time. More creatures appeared in the sky, and a few smelly people were engulfed and devoured by the monsters, prompting others to run into the church in terror. The doctor shut the doors and told everyone that the church was old, and the older the building, the stronger it would be. He explained that time itself had fractured, and these monsters were like viruses invading temporal cracks. Jackie continued questioning the doctor, who sternly ordered her to immediately check all doors and windows. His authority stunned Jackie, and she complied with his instructions. A man approached, mentioning that his father had left a phone call on repeat, playing the same line over and over. The doctor dismissed it as unimportant, noting that even the police couldn't handle these creatures. He warned that time was collapsing and everything would vanish because of Rose's actions. Realizing the gravity of her mistake, Rose felt the weight of her choices. Meanwhile, the car that hit Pete kept looping outside, seemingly oblivious, as it echoed that this was all irrelevant. Pete, however, began piecing things together. He turned to Rose, saying he wouldn't just give his car keys to a stranger unless he instinctively trusted them. She called him Dad, and she sounded so much like Jackie when she yelled, so she must be his daughter, all grown up. The two then embraced emotionally. The bride and groom asked the doctor if he could save them. The doctor, intrigued, asked how they had met. They shared their love story, how they met at 2 a.m. and fell for each other. The doctor, deeply moved, replied that he had traveled across many planets and seen countless things, but nothing quite like this. He promised he would do his best to save them. Rose and Pete started talking, with Rose explaining that they traveled using the doctor's time machine. Pete asked about his future self, to which Rose hesitated to respond. At that moment, the young boy from earlier ran over to hug Rose, revealing himself to be young Mickey. The doctor, holding baby Rose, noticed that Rose was about to touch her younger self and quickly stopped her, warning that touching oneself would create another paradox, strengthening the monsters outside. The doctor then apologized to Rose, explaining that he hadn't intended to leave her alone, and Rose reassured him that she understood. The doctor mused that if the Time Lords were still around, they might have been able to fix this, but now he was the only one of his race left and didn't know what to do. Rose then apologized as well, and they embraced again without a kiss until the burning TARDIS key forced them apart. The doctor realized that the TARDIS hadn't disappeared. It was just outside the temporal rift, but it needed a power boost. He found a battery, used the sonic screwdriver, and began trying to bring it back. Meanwhile, the monsters outside started banging on the door. Pete asked Rose what their family's future would look like and whether he was a good father. To comfort him, Rose made up stories about things that never happened. Pete, however, knew his character well and pointed out that didn't sound like him at all. The doctor finally powered up, and the TARDIS began to flicker into view inside the church. He told Rose that once time was restored, their memories would disappear, though the changes she had made would remain. Pete interjected, asking if that meant he would still be alive. He sighed, saying he's useless. He couldn't even die properly, and he wasn't a good father. At that moment, Jackie walked up and asked Pete how many grown children like this he had. Pete explained that this was Rose, to which Jackie accused him of going too far by even giving their daughter a second-hand name, sarcastically asking if all his daughters were named Rose. Pete then brought baby Rose to compare with the present-day Rose. But as the two came into contact, the monsters outside grew stronger, bursting through into the church. The doctor shielded everyone behind him, proclaiming that he was the oldest thing there. One of the creatures lunged at him, causing the doctor to vanish. The creature then collided with the time machine, and both the TARDIS and the monster disappeared together. Realizing that her actions had led to this disaster, Rose knew that no one could save them now. Pete looked out the window, noticing the car that was looping continuously. He seemed to understand, and gathering his resolve, told Rose he knew that car was meant to hit him. The doctor wants things to happen as they originally did, but now he can't protect him. Jackie finally realized that Rose was indeed their daughter from the future. Pete told his wife he was going to die and she was finally free of him, so live a good life and raise their daughter. He added he's lucky though, since he got to see his daughter grow up. Now he needs to be a good father. With those words, he took the vase, ran out of the church, and before the monster could react, went to the designated spot where he was hit by the car and died to meet his maker. At the moment of his death, everything seemed to return to normal. The doctor reappeared, telling Rose that it was time to leave. Rose had finally fulfilled her wish and come to terms with her father's death. Holding hands, she and the doctor walked back to the TARDIS. In the next scene, the doctor was piloting the TARDIS in pursuit of a spacecraft that appeared to be another time machine. They had detected a signal in space, and following it led them to this ship. To his surprise, this time machine was heading to Earth, so the doctor followed it down. The TARDIS landed on a street in London where a strange gaze seemed to be fixed on the Doctor and Rose. Due to the time travel disturbance, the Doctor arrived slightly off target. Undeterred, he pulled out a psychic paper, confidently stating that with this, they didn't need to worry. They could simply ask around if anyone had seen anything unusual falling from the sky. Using his sonic screwdriver, he started looking for clues, but Rose teased him about relying on such primitive methods despite having advanced technology. The Doctor retorted, criticizing her Union Jack jumpsuit. Just then, Rose heard a little boy's voice calling Mummy. Looking up, she saw a young boy wearing a gas mask standing on a rooftop. Figuring it was the boy calling for his mother, Rose moved closer, captivated. The Doctor, noticing Rose was gone, decided to continue searching for clues on his own. Rose approached the building, intending to climb up and bring the boy down. Just then, a rope dropped from the sky, and without a second thought, she grabbed hold and began climbing. However, the rope was attached to a dirigible, which started lifting her off the ground. Dangling in midair, Rose shouted for the Doctor, struggling to hold on. Meanwhile, several fighter planes approached in the distance. The Doctor entered a pub and asked the patrons if anything strange had recently fallen from the sky, but the crowd just laughed, finding the question amusing. Then the air raid sirens began blaring and everyone began evacuating in a practiced, unbothered manner. The Doctor returned to the TARDIS, where he found its phone ringing. He was about to answer, but a young girl nearby warned him not to pick it up since the call wasn't for him. The Doctor was puzzled, especially since the phone wasn't even connected, so how could it be ringing? But when he turned back around, the girl had disappeared. Curiosity got the better of him, and he eventually answered the call, only to hear the little boy's voice on the other end, calling out, "Mummy." He then heard a noise nearby and went to investigate. Peeking in, he saw the residents taking cover, while the girl from earlier had snuck into their house, grabbing food and whistling for a group of kids to come and share. Meanwhile, Rose was struggling to hold on to the rope. Captain Jack spotted her dangling from an air balloon through his binoculars, and impressed by her bravery, admired her and the officer's form beside him before setting off to rescue her. Just as Rose was about to lose her grip and fall, a beam caught her mid-air, and she was transported to Captain Jack's ship. Upon seeing the handsome captain, or perhaps just from exhaustion, Rose fainted right into his hormone-let-go arms. The Doctor suddenly appeared behind the dinner table, startling the children. After speaking with them, he learned that Britain had an evacuation plan to send children to the countryside for safety. But due to more resources being available in the city, the children had chosen to stay and survive in London. The group's leader was a girl named Nancy. The Doctor then asked Nancy how she knew about the phone calls, questioning if she had any connection to it. Nancy was reluctant to reveal much. The Doctor continued by asking if she had seen Rose or the time machine, to which Nancy responded with a strange expression. Just then, the familiar mummy call echoed from the door. The Doctor opened the curtains and saw, as expected, the COVID mask-wearing boy. Nancy rushed to check if the door had been locked by the children, but apparently it hadn't been. She hurriedly locked it, while the Doctor asked why she was so afraid of the boy. Nancy replied that he wasn't human, then instructed the children to leave. The boy, in a pleading tone, called from outside and begged Mummy to let him in. The Doctor considered opening the door, but Nancy stopped him, warning that anyone who encountered the boy would end up like him. The phone inside the house rang, and Nancy remarked that it was him again and advised against answering. When the Doctor picked up, he realized the sound was coming from a toy. He returned to the door, talked with the boy for a moment, then cautiously opened it, only to find that the boy had mysteriously vanished. Meanwhile, Rose woke up. Captain Jack introduced himself and handed her a psychic paper, but Rose immediately saw through it. Impressed, Jack realized she was no ordinary girl and started flirting with her. Not only did he use nanogenes to heal her wounds, but he also offered her champagne aboard his invisible spaceship, showcasing his various skills. Rose said they were in the middle of a war. It's definitely not the right time for him to hit on her sexy body, and most importantly, she already had a male companion. Disappointed yet respectful, Jack decided to help Rose find the Doctor. Nancy, carrying food, returned to her hiding spot with the Doctor following closely behind. The Doctor pointed out that the creature was indeed not human, but it seemed to be following her. He guessed that whatever had happened began about a month ago and was likely related to the falling object. Nancy confirmed that something had fallen near a hospital, but she couldn't go there herself and suggested the Doctor find some medical staff inside the building. Reluctantly, she led the Doctor to the hospital and instructed him to look for the medical expert within. Peering through binoculars, the doctor observed that the hospital was heavily guarded, but remarked that it wouldn't be difficult for him to enter. He asked Nancy who she had lost in the war, noting that it might be her motivation to help the other children. Nancy paused, explaining that her younger brother had died a month earlier, right when the object fell. The COVID mask-wearing boy had also appeared at that time. Inside the hospital, the doctor noticed that there were few medical staff and the beds were filled with patients. Strangely, all of them wore gas masks. Eventually, he met the medical expert, who seemed sick himself and was frequently coughing. He advised the doctor not to touch the patients, mentioning that the masks were not ordinary gas masks, but COVID masks. Using the sonic screwdriver, the doctor examined one patient and found that the COVID mask appeared to be part of the patient's face, as if it had grown there. After examining several patients, he observed that they all had identical injuries and masks fused with their faces. The medical expert explained that when the object fell, the first victim was infected, and by the next day, everyone who had come in contact with that person was also infected, spreading through the entire ward and eventually the entire hospital. The doctor asked what exactly was causing their condition. The medical expert replied that they hadn't died. Instead, all the patients simultaneously sat up. He explained that they weren't dangerous, but were without a heartbeat, like living corpses. The doctor asked if anyone else was tending to them, and the medical expert said it was just him, doing his best to keep them comfortable. As he continued, he lamented that he was now without family and all alone, but he was still a medical expert. Suddenly, he grimaced in pain and warned the doctor to find the top-floor room where the first infected was located, and to locate Nancy, as she hadn't told the full story. The boy was her brother, and with that, the medical expert's face transformed into a gas mask. The doctor watched in shock as sounds echoed from the hallway. It was Rose and Captain Jack. Rose updated the doctor, mentioning something about the Chula warship. The doctor asked Jack what the Chula warship was, and Jack tried to brush it off. The doctor remarked that this disease seemed to have spread from the crash site. It turned out the object he had been chasing was a Chula warship, but it was actually just an empty shell. Jack confessed that he had sent out a fake distress signal to attract time agents, hoping to sell the artifact at a high price. The doctor realized he was a temporal con artist, and this virus could rewrite human genes, but he didn't understand why they would do this. Meanwhile, Nancy had gone back to collect food, but this time, the little boy appeared inside the room. Nancy hid under the table, but an apple she was holding accidentally rolled out, drawing the boy's attention. She tried to escape, but the boy noticed, shut the door, and locked it, asking if she was his mummy. Nancy responded she's his sister. Back with the doctor, all the living corpses sat up and began moving towards him, repeatedly muttering mummy. Nancy told her little brother Jamie that he was dead. Thinking quickly, the doctor adopted a stern tone, commanding Jamie to return to his room, and he was now very angry. To his surprise, Jamie obeyed, and the other living corpses returned to their original state. Captain Jack came clean with the doctor, admitting that he was a temporal dealer, tricking people in apocalyptic or wartime settings where evidence could easily be destroyed, a method that worked every time. The doctor criticized him, saying this whole mess was his fault. Jack argued, saying that thing was just an empty medical capsule with no harmful effects. Every time he uses time coordinates to ensure it doesn't harm living beings. The doctor replied that he miscalculated, and today was the London Blitz. As the air raid sirens faded, Nancy ran out of the house, only to be caught by the property owner. Things were looking bleak. The doctor and the others reached the top-floor room, where Jack used his sonic blaster to open the door, which seemed much more effective than the doctor's screwdriver. Entering the room, they found no one, but the walls were covered in children's drawings of a woman. The doctor turned on a recording device, which played a conversation between the doctor and a child. The doctor asked if the child understood his surroundings, but the boy only repeated that he wanted to find his mummy. Nancy was trapped by the house owner, who scolded her, saying all this food was bought with his hard-earned money and threatening to call the police. However, Nancy had a trump card. She pointed out that the homeowner's money was obtained dishonestly, causing him to panic, and she turned the threat back on him. The doctor sensed this atmosphere of fear like that of a lost little boy searching for his mummy. The doctor explained that a group of children had been scavenging for food when the bombing hit, which might be when the boy got injured. But what's even scarier is that the tape had long finished rewinding, so why was the voice still playing? The three of them turned around to see the boy standing in the room, asking if any of them were his mummy. The doctor, realizing the boy had indeed returned to his room as instructed, helplessly instructed everyone to run. The three quickly fled for their shitty lives. Captain Jack used his sonic blaster to hold the boy back briefly, but the walls began to tremble as the living corpses started moving toward them. The doctor's sonic screwdriver was no match for the power of the sonic blaster. In a desperate moment, Rose used the sonic blaster to break through a path below, and they dropped down, using the blaster again to reconstruct the ceiling after they passed through. However, the living corpses in the basement began surrounding them again, so they held the door while searching for another escape route. Jack remarked that the sonic screwdriver of his was really outdated, but as soon as he said it, he mysteriously disappeared. Nancy rejoined the children, preparing them to start taking responsibility for themselves since she couldn't keep coming back. She realized she had to confront her brother Jamie directly and head to the bombed area to find out the truth, understanding that he was drawn to her, making it unsafe for the children to be around her. At this moment, the typewriter began typing on its own, repeatedly typing lines of where Mummy was. Nancy knew it was time for her to leave. Captain Jack communicated with the doctor, explaining that he had used his emergency teleport to return to his ship and promised to do his best to help them. The doctor asked how he was speaking with them. Jack explained it was through a form of real-time communication technology. The doctor remarked that even the child had that ability. Outside, they heard Jamie's voice calling for his mummy again, but Jack used his signal to block Jamie's voice and started playing music instead. The doctor remained skeptical of Captain Jack and planned to escape using his own methods. He asked Rose why she trusted Jack so much. Was it just because he was handsome? Rose replied that Jack reminded her of the doctor, only Jack was handsome and could dance and flirt. The doctor, feeling slightly offended, stated that he was over 900 years old and certainly knew how to dance in TikTok style, though he didn't feel the need to boast. Rose teased him about his jealousy. She invited him to dance, and as the doctor took her hand, he noticed healed marks from Jack's nanogenes. The two were then transported to Captain Jack's ship, where the doctor saw the nanogenes in action. These nanogenes could heal living beings, restoring them to their original state. Jack explained that he used to be a time agent, but one day discovered he had lost 2 years of his memory. This led him to make a living while searching for clues about his lost memories. Meanwhile, Nancy had entered the quarantine zone but was caught by soldiers and locked up. However, one of the soldiers guarding her had already started showing injuries similar to Jamie's, indicating he was also being transformed. Despite Nancy's attempts to persuade the soldier to let her go, it was already too late. The doctor and the others arrived at the quarantine zone, intending to divert the guards but realizing that the virus had already spread. The doctor warned that it was now airborne, potentially becoming a biological hazard. They rescued Nancy, who was singing a lullaby, and brought her to the medical capsule. Captain Jack tried to prove that the ship was empty, but instead of opening it, he accidentally activated the alarm system, which alerted the gas mask creatures to their location, causing them to start moving toward them. The doctor handed his sonic screwdriver to Rose, instructing her to repair the barbed wire Nancy had cut earlier to buy them some time. Nancy asked where they were from. Rose replied that they were from the future. Nancy, shocked, questioned if there even was a future given the current state of the war. Rose reassured her that there was, explaining she was born in London and that life in the future would be much better. The doctor explained that the ship contained enough nanogenes to reconstruct an entire race. When they first encountered the wounded child with the gas mask, the nanogenes assumed that was the natural human form and couldn't differentiate between the mask and the child's body. So, they began to replicate that form, intending to heal all humans to match that template, and wouldn't stop until humanity was extinct. When the ship was attacked earlier, it signaled all the creatures it had healed to gather. Their leader was the first body it fixed, the little boy Jamie, because this was a wartime medical ship, so the nanogenes not only healed but also prepared people for combat. That's why Jamie had those abilities. With the imminent bombing, Jack's teleport could only take him alone, so he escaped. Nancy, overwhelmed, admitted that it was her fault. She was indeed Jamie's mother, having given birth to him in her teens but unable to acknowledge it. Meanwhile, the creatures outside chanted Mummy in unison. The door opened, and Jamie led the creatures inside, repeatedly asking Nancy if she was his mummy. The doctor told Nancy that the fate of humanity rested in her hands. Nancy approached Jamie, hugged him while crying, confessed to being his mother, and apologized continuously. the nanogenes began recognizing information. The doctor explained that these nanogenes were intelligent and could identify the genetic relationship between Nancy and Jamie. He stepped forward, removed Jamie's gas mask, and joyfully embraced him. The doctor told Nancy that her genetics had influenced the nanogenes, but at that moment, a bomb was flying straight toward them. In a critical moment, Captain Jack's ship flew by and used a tractor beam to capture the bomb. He complimented Rose on her Union Jack jumpsuit before flying away with the bomb. The doctor used the nanogenies to restore all those who had been infected. The healing was intense, with even a man missing a leg regrowing it. The doctor was thrilled because, for once, everyone survived. However, he noted that nanogenes like these weren't supposed to exist in this era. The doctor gathered the nanogenes back into the ship, activated the self-destruct sequence, and the London Blitz came to an end. Meanwhile, Captain Jack ran into some trouble. The bomb was about to explode, and his ship had no escape pods. Resigned, he lay back in his chair and sipped champagne. But then the TARDIS appeared, and the doctor and Rose saved him. The doctor, remembering how to dance, asked Rose whom she wanted to dance with. Rose ultimately chose the doctor, and they shared a TikTok dance together. Previously, the doctor had Mickey operate a missile to destroy an entire building, wiping out the Slitheen family. However, in the last moment, the blue-suited Slitheen activated an emergency escape device, escaping alone. Without support from her kin or a proper spacecraft, she couldn't leave Earth immediately and instead bided her time to enact her own plans. The scene shifts to an elderly man reporting to a leader about a powerful, destructive project that should be halted immediately. The camera shifted to reveal that he was reporting to the blue-suited Slitheen herself. She smiled and asked if he was reporting only to her. The man confirmed, adding that their leader had the wisdom to authorize the project, which could potentially destroy the city. The Slitheen then attacked him, signaling that she had created yet another device aimed at world destruction. A train arrived and Mickey disembarked, heading straight to the TARDIS and knocking on the door. Captain Jack poked his head out, asking who he was. Rose happily embraced Mickey, but he could tell from her words that she intended to continue her travels, leaving him slightly disappointed. Rose explained that they were only stopping briefly because there was a temporal rift below, likely the same one they'd seen during the Dickensian ghost incident. Now, with the TARDIS positioned over it, they could replenish its energy. Mickey felt a bit uneasy since his girlfriend was now traveling with two men, one of whom was quite handsome. He and Captain Jack exchanged a few quips, but this time it felt different. With Rose and the doctor mediating, the four of them strolled out of the TARDIS ready to explore London. Meanwhile, the Slitheen had climbed up the ranks to become the mayor and was now enthusiastically presenting her vision of a newly built nuclear plant to a group of officials. After the meeting, a journalist approached, requesting an interview. This journalist was well prepared, having done extensive research and even bringing up several deaths associated with the nuclear plant. Realizing the journalist was not easily fooled, the Slitheen decided to lead her to the ladies' restroom to silence her. During their conversation, however, the Slitheen learned that the journalist was married and 3 months pregnant. As the journalist talked about her dreams for her family, it reminded the Slitheen of her own family, all of whom had perished. In a rare moment of compassion, she spared the journalist, allowing her to escape this time. The doctor and his companions were enjoying a lively conversation at a riverside restaurant when he noticed an elderly man nearby holding a newspaper that looked oddly familiar. Upon closer inspection, he realized it featured a photo of a Slitheen. It seemed they were on a mission again. Strutting into the office building like a gang, Captain Jack fluently coordinated everyone to follow his plan. The doctor interrupted, questioning who was really in charge, to which Jack replied he could be. The doctor, considering for a moment, decided to go along with Jack's plan. The doctor approached a staff member, introducing himself as an old friend of the mayor, requesting the message be relayed. When the Slitheen heard the doctor was there, she immediately jumped out of a window to escape. The doctor and his companions gave chase, but the Slitheen, sensing danger, used a trick to disappear on the spot. However, the doctor had already encountered this technique when dealing with Cassandra on future Earth, so he easily foiled it with his sonic screwdriver, forcing her to reappear each time closer. Exhausted, the Slitheen asked what she had ever done to him and why he wouldn't leave her alone. The doctor, aware that her nuclear plant was built directly over a temporal rift and designed to explode upon activation, realized it would have enough power to destroy the world through the rift. The Slitheen, however, had hidden technology that would shield her from the explosion and propel her away. Captain Jack admired the device, comparing it to intergalactic skateboarding. The doctor sensed something was amiss when he saw the word "bad wolf" scrawled on the wall, a phrase that seemed to follow them everywhere, but he shrugged it off as coincidence. The doctor proposed using the TARDIS to send the Slitheen back home, but she protested, saying her family had been sentenced to death and returning meant execution. Back in the TARDIS, as they prepared to take off, she remarked that sending her back home makes them the executioner, and her blood will be on their hands. She challenged if anyone could truly look her in the eye. In the end, none of them could hold her gaze for long. While Rose and Mickey stepped out for a breather, enjoying some time together, they ended up arguing again. Mickey voiced his frustration, saying he just ran off with 2 guys, leaving him here waiting. He had sacrificed so much for her. Even if it took a lifetime, he'd wait for her, but he felt like he's just a backup. He confessed that he knew he couldn't stop her from traveling through time with them, but at least give him some reassurance. Meanwhile, the Slitheen continued her mind games with the doctor, begging them to take her to the one place she had always wanted to go, Leighton's Last Supper. The doctor hesitated, citing potential danger, but Captain Jack pulled out a pair of handcuffs, explaining that if she strayed more than a certain distance, she'd get a 100,000-volt shock. Reluctantly, the doctor agreed to take her out for this Last Supper. These 2 aliens together were certainly tricky. The Slitheen tricked the doctor into looking away, using the chance to poison his drink. But when the doctor turned back, he simply swapped their glasses. She then inquired if he knew anything about her species' abilities, mentioning that Slitheen females could produce darts from their hands in emergencies. Just as she launched one, the doctor caught it mid-air. Seeing her tactics failing, she tried another approach, pretending to get closer to the doctor to share a secret, revealing that her kind could exhale large amounts of toxic gas. The doctor promptly countered by spraying her with an antidote. He then casually asked what she'd like to eat, remaining entirely unruffled. Realizing that force wouldn't work, the Slitheen tried a softer tactic, sharing her tragic family history and pleading for a chance to change. She promised to live peacefully if he'd drop her off on another planet with her kind. The doctor reminded her that her skin was stripped from a lady's body, showing he didn't trust her. She defended herself, saying she had even spared the journalist that morning. The doctor retorted that it was merely a rare moment of mercy, pointing out her numerous past murders. She shot back, asking if he was afraid to face his actions since he never looked back. For a moment, the doctor hesitated, uncertain. The Slitheen continued, explaining she'd been forced to be a villain since birth. But just then, strange noises captured the doctor's attention as streetlights shattered and the ground trembled. He quickly pulled the Slitheen outside to investigate. Over on Mickey's side, he watched Rose run off to find the doctor, left fuming. The doctor then noticed his TARDIS emitting strange lights and lightning as the temporal rift began to open. They rushed back, only for the Slitheen to seize the opportunity to take Rose hostage. It turned out she had a backup plan all along. Her thruster would automatically track the nearest alien energy source and tear open the rift. She demanded the doctor bring her thruster, her hoverboard. Stepping onto it, she prepared to escape. At that moment, a brilliant white light shone upon her face. The doctor explained this was his beloved TARDIS. She had awakened her soul. He told her to look upon the heart of the TARDIS. The Slitheen gazed into the light, a peaceful smile spreading across her face, murmuring thanks before collapsing, leaving only her skin behind. The doctor and his companions scrambled to operate the TARDIS, successfully sealing the rift. The doctor and his companions found the Slitheen's skin, realizing she had reverted to an egg, essentially returning to her childhood. The doctor remarked that if they placed her in a normal family, perhaps she'd grow up to be a better individual. Only time would tell if this time around would lead to a positive outcome. Rose suddenly realized she'd left Mickey alone once again and hurried off to find him. Firefighters arrived in the area to deal with the aftermath of the tremors. Mickey watched Rose from a distance but didn't approach her, perhaps reassessing his relationship with her. Rose returned to the TARDIS, saying Mickey was fine and suggesting they continue their time travels. But deep down, she was also wondering if maybe Mickey should stop waiting for her and find someone more suitable for his happiness. As mentioned, the doctor previously took Adam and Rose to a space station orbiting future Earth, where humanity had been manipulated by fake news broadcasted by monsters. Luckily, the doctor and his companions arrived in time to stop the creatures, restoring humanity's capacity for independent thought. But it didn't take long for future humans to devise new schemes to challenge the doctor. The scene shifts to the doctor waking up in an enclosed room, feeling disoriented as he rushed out. Outside, a woman steadied him, saying that he'd been chosen. The doctor, utterly confused, asked what was going on. Nearby, a few other people were speaking in phrases the doctor didn't quite understand. An electronic eye emitted a mechanical voice, guiding the doctor to a dark room with a large red chair. Meanwhile, Rose was also waking up in a state of confusion. A young man beside her explained that coming out of the teleport glass would leave her with temporary memory loss. Rose asked where the doctor was, but the young man advised her to listen to Android, warning her not to trust Apple. In the distance, a woman was calling for contestants to return to the stage. The young man helped Rose up, saying it's her turn on stage. In her state of confusion, Rose was led onto a set that resembled a reality show like The Weakest Link, with her name displayed in front of her. The android appeared to be a robot. The show began, and a mechanical voice welcomed her to the show. Captain Jack also regained consciousness and found himself facing two female robots. The robots remarked that Jack was indeed handsome and should consider entering a fashion show, though they suggested he get some work done on his chin and change his outfit. The two robots activated, and a machine promptly disassembled Jack's clothes. Jack proudly remarked that if he went on screen like this, their ratings would definitely skyrocket. Meanwhile, the doctor paced around his room looking for a way out. During their conversation, we learned that the woman who helped the doctor up was named Linda. The doctor finally remembered that on their way to Kyoto, they had been struck by a beam of light. Linda explained that it was a teleport beam. The doctor suspected that something more was at play, as a standard teleport beam couldn't penetrate the TARDIS. He looked into a surveillance camera and declared he would find his way out, and then he would come for her. The control room staff were startled by the doctor's actions, then began preparing for the show. The game started, and the contestants began answering questions. While other contestants were nervous, Rose burst into laughter and couldn't stop. One of the staff members in the control room commented if she already knew the answers. Meanwhile, Jack was getting a makeover with the female robots. After the makeover, one robot extended a chainsaw and asked Jack if he was ready for plastic surgery. Jack replied that he had considered it before, but didn't think it was necessary on such a scale. After the first round, it was time to vote, and a blonde woman was chosen. She cried like a blonde baby, begging for another chance, but the rules were the rules. The android emitted a laser from its mouth, reducing the blonde woman to blonde ash. The young contestant beside her tried to make an excuse to escape, but was also vaporized by the android's laser. It seemed that losing this game didn't mean falling into a pit. It meant being eliminated on the spot. Rose, horrified, asked what was going on. The guy who had helped her earlier explained that the contestants were being disintegrated at the atomic level. It was clear that in this game, the contestant couldn't afford to lose or run away, otherwise they'd be gone forever. The doctor's group gathered around a television where the android announced the elimination results for the first round. A woman had been voted out. She said tearful goodbyes to the other two contestants and then stepped into a small room. The doctor, puzzled, asked why they were all so sad. It's just a game. She can go out and make some money. But the television showed that the woman was also vaporized by the laser. The doctor was stunned, muttering that this game was intense. Two staff members noticed the doctor wasn't from around there. As the scene shifts, we discover that the one responsible for the transmission is a stunning woman, her body covered in tubes. After the doctor speaks with Linda and the others, he learns that the current show randomly selects participants from the global population to play a game where winners get to continue living, while losers simply disappear. The doctor worries about Rose, who has also been pulled into this game, fearing he might want to escape immediately. Meanwhile, at Captain Jack's location, two female robots are dissatisfied with the outfits. They suggest using a disintegration ray to eliminate the clothes, with one proposing to remove his head and replace it with a dog's head, or attach his legs to his chest. Captain Jack glances at the chainsaw and scissors in their hands, realizing they're not joking. He exclaims for them not to push him. The robots shoot him a look, asking where his courage came from since he's completely naked and unarmed. Out of nowhere, Jack pulls out a gun and blasts the heads off both robots. It seems that the gun must have been hidden in his smelly butt. In the next round of the game, another participant is eliminated. The young man tells Rose he's going to keep her for last and then easily defeat her. That way, he would gain the recognition and rewards from the Bad Wolf Company. Rose is puzzled. The young man explains the Bad Wolf Company is the game's operator. As for why they were called that, he had no idea. Rose realizes that his previous encounters with the Bad Wolves weren't mere coincidences. Back with the doctor, he faces elimination because he tampered with the surveillance equipment. Confidently, he walks into the designated room, and when the countdown ends, the disintegration ray fails to activate. Someone has altered the program. The doctor asserts that the people who brought him here wouldn't let him die so easily and steps back outside. Encouraged by the doctor, Linda follows him. Once outside, the doctor recognizes the place, saying he was here 100 years ago and this was the old Satellite 5. Linda replies this place hadn't been called Satellite 5 for ages. Now it's the game satellite. The doctor notices something strange about the energy readings and wants to find Rose and the others, but Linda tells him there are hundreds of different games going on here. When she learns the doctor is a time traveler, she expresses a desire to join him on his journeys. He replies they should just get out of here first. Linda turns on a light, revealing a large sign that reads, "The Bad Wolf Group, the controller of the world." In the control room, the staff realizes the doctor and Linda have emerged and prepares to check the files. He approaches the tube-covered beauty and says he doesn't pose a security risk. She, however, repeatedly insists they should continue the game, as if he doesn't exist. Another staff member attempts to access the files, but is still blocked. Captain Jack constructs a massive weapon from robot parts, ready to venture out in search of the doctor. Meanwhile, the doctor and Linda reach a display window and gaze down at Earth, shocked to see that humanity has once again destroyed itself. The Atlantic smog blankets most of the planet, forcing people to remain indoors, watching television, waiting for government notifications on when it's safe to go outside. The doctor wonders if history has gone awry again. This must be the Fourth Reich of Earth. Linda mentions that 100 years ago, all news suddenly vanished overnight, and the political and economic systems collapsed worldwide. The doctor is taken aback, realizing this seems like something he had caused previously. Captain Jack located the doctor, and together they used some devices to try and find Rose. While the doctor was hard at work, Captain Jack was still busy flirting with sexy women. The doctor felt as if the bad wolf was constantly trying to control his life, but he didn't know what the bad wolf was. Meanwhile, the game on Rose's side continued, with only her and the young man left on stage. She faced her future with a 1-point deficit against the young man. Just then, the doctor and his team burst in, but they were a step too late. As Rose ran towards the doctor, she was turned to ashes by an android's disintegration ray. The doctor, stunned, touched Rose's ashes, his body frozen in shock. Immediately, security personnel arrived and threw him into prison. The doctor seemed defeated, but as the guards were leaving, he suddenly commanded them to take action. Captain Jack's agility and skill were remarkable, and they managed to overpower the guards, grabbing weapons as they fought their way up to the 500th floor. Staff surrounded the main control woman, instructing her to shut down the elevator, but she merely said the solar flare was coming. Without hesitation, Captain Jack took control of everyone in the room. The doctor questioned who's in charge here. A staff member explained that the lady main controller had been like this since she was 5 years old and couldn't answer his questions. Moreover, a mysterious signal had been transmitting for years. It's stored in Archive 6. Captain Jack directly entered Archive 6 only to find the TARDIS. The solar flare struck and all the machines shut down. At that moment, the lady controller began calling for the doctor, explaining that she could only see darkness and numbers, but now she could finally see him. Her master had always lurked in the shadows, monitoring and indoctrinating humanity. They were incredibly powerful and growing stronger, but they feared the doctor. He pressed on, asking who her master was, but as the solar flare subsided, she couldn't tell him. Captain Jack ran over, claiming he had discovered the truth. He made Linda stand under the disintegration machine, which broke her down and then reassembled her by the doctor's side. It turned out it wasn't a disintegration ray, but a teleportation device. This means Rose was still alive. The doctor and Captain Jack embraced joyfully. Rose woke up in a strange place with familiar blue surroundings drawing closer. He shouted this was impossible. The main controller defied her master's orders and gave the doctor a set of coordinates, but she herself was teleported away and subsequently killed by her master. The doctor asked Captain Jack to use the console to locate the teleportation destination. Suddenly, a fleet appeared before them, and the doctor recognized them as Dalek ships. They had survived, around 500,000 of them in those warships. The Daleks, realizing they were exposed, contacted the doctor directly, threatening him, saying they had Rose and not to interfere. The doctor warned them that he would eliminate every foul-smelling Dalek in the universe, save Earth, and rescue Rose. A Dalek asked Rose to predict the Doctor's moves since she was the Doctor's companion, but of course, Rose would never tell. The TARDIS materialized inside the Dalek ship. Captain Jack burst out and immediately took down the Daleks in the room. Rose hugged them, and the Doctor reassured her he would never ever give up on her. A deep voice from the Dalek side muttered that they must endure for now. The Doctor examined the remains of the Daleks, discovering they had survived the Time War. Captain Jack thought it was just a myth, but the Doctor replied he was there himself. Almost all the Time Lords were wiped out, yet the Daleks survived. Their deaths felt meaningless. The Doctor decided to confront these Daleks. As he stepped outside the TARDIS, all the Daleks aimed their guns at him, but their rays bounced off the TARDIS's protective field. The Doctor asked if they were afraid of him and why they were still alive. A deep voice responded, "It's because of him." Then, the Daleks made way, revealing a massive Dalek, the Dalek Emperor himself. Though the Time War had destroyed many Daleks, the Emperor and the remaining Daleks had hidden in the fragments of time, slowly infiltrating Earth, using human waste, prisoners, and vagrants to rebuild the Daleks. Rose questioned if that made them half-human. The Daleks retorted at her not to desecrate them. The Dalek Emperor had purged any human genes from their ranks. The Doctor found it odd. Since when did Daleks fear desecration? Having spent too long in the depths of darkness, they had been driven mad by their own bodies, hating even themselves, which only made them more terrifying. After that, the Doctor returned to the TARDIS, taking them back to Satellite 5. He was puzzled why Linda hadn't left, only to find that the teleportation device had broken, and she also wanted to stay with him. The Dalek fleet advanced toward Satellite 5, intending to conquer Earth and make it their paradise. The Doctor planned to use the space station as an energy weapon to destroy all the Daleks, but that would take 3 days, while the Daleks would arrive in just 22 minutes. Captain Jack assigned tasks, and the Doctor prepared on the 500th floor, as the TARDIS was there, protected by a force field that prevented the Daleks from directly destroying Satellite 5, so the Daleks had to come inside to kill the Doctor. Captain Jack and his team fortified the 494th floor, knowing this mission might be their last. He shared a farewell but smelly kiss with both Rose and the Doctor before heading off to secure the defenses. Rose stayed to assist the Doctor while Jack rallied the crew with a pre-battle speech. Some didn't believe the Daleks still existed, but Jack warned that the Daleks would attack from above, not below. When they hear the sounds of their assault and feel the terror of death, they'll know the Daleks are real. He then led those willing to fight to the 494th floor. Rose asked the Doctor why he didn't go back a week and warn everyone to evacuate, since the TARDIS could travel through time. The Doctor replied the moment the TARDIS arrived here, time became fixed. They can't alter what's already set, but if they wanted to leave, they could depart any time using the TARDIS. Rose understood. The Doctor wasn't planning to leave. The Doctor continued working on his weapon but realized time was running out. He devised a plan to start calculating the time travel path earlier by crossing his own timeline. They entered the TARDIS, and the Doctor asked Rose to hold on to a device while he went out to finish the setup. But once outside, the Doctor didn't alter time. This was just a ploy to send Rose away. He didn't want her to die with him here. Rose was anxious but helpless as a program in the TARDIS activated and a hologram of the Doctor appeared. The hologram explained that in a dire emergency, or if he's about to die, Program 1 activates to send her home. To ensure the TARDIS doesn't fall into enemy hands, all she has to do now is deactivate it, transforming it into an ordinary police box. No one will be able to open it or notice it. Rose desperately tried to get the TARDIS to take her back, but instead it transported her to London. The Doctor had said from the beginning that time was fixed. Perhaps he and Rose both wanted to believe they still had a chance. Mickey, hearing the sound of the TARDIS, rushed over and asked what was happening. Rose broke down, hugging Mickey and sobbing. Captain Jack still wanted Rose to help, but the Doctor informed him that he had already sent Rose and the TARDIS away. The Dalek Emperor mocked the Doctor, saying that such a weapon could be manufactured, but it could never be refined. Those rays would kill all Daleks, but they would also wipe out humanity. The Doctor insisted humanity could survive through other means and demanded to know what the Bad Wolf is. To his surprise, the Dalek Emperor replied that the Bad Wolf isn't part of their plans. The Bad Wolf is the God of Truth. Rose, Jackie, and Mickey were at a diner eating, but faced with the Doctor's struggle and humanity's impending doom, they couldn't calm down, and Rose eventually ran out of the diner. The Dalek forces accelerated their march. Captain Jack asked Linda to be his eyes and ears. They were still trying, but the number of Daleks outside seemed endless. Mickey tried to persuade Rose, but she spotted the bad wolf appearing before them, perhaps as a warning or a possible path to salvation. Back in the TARDIS, Rose told Mickey that the heart of the TARDIS was inside. She said he would understand everything if he saw it. The Daleks had infiltrated Satellite 5, completely disabling all their defense systems, and their weapons were ineffective against the Daleks. Even their unbeatable androids didn't last beyond 4 rounds. The Daleks seemed to know the Doctor's plan and countered it by heading to the lower levels to massacre the humans instead of seeking the Doctor directly. Meanwhile, other Dalek ships began moving toward Earth, bombarding the continents to gradually eliminate humanity. Mickey tried to pry open a hatch using a small car, but it lacked enough pulling power. Jackie attempted to dissuade Rose, but Rose insisted when her father died she was the one by his side. If he were here now, he'd support her. Jackie, moved by her words, found a heavy crane to help them. With Mickey pushing the car to its maximum power, they finally opened the TARDIS control panel. Rose looked directly into the heart of the TARDIS, the time vortex itself, as endless knowledge and information poured into her mind. Then, the blue police box vanished along with her. On Captain Jack's side, they couldn't hold on much longer. Linda was killed by a Dalek outside the window, and Jack himself went down heroically. The Daleks surrounded the Doctor, who threatened to kill them all together. The Daleks responded that he's full of hatred, just like a Dalek. Besides, they wouldn't mind taking all of humanity down with them. They urged him to press it and see if he was a coward or a killer. The Doctor hesitated, admitting his own weakness. The Dalek Emperor taunted him, saying humanity would become their fodder. Suddenly, the sound of the TARDIS returned, and Rose appeared in a burst of golden light. Shocked, the Doctor asked what she had done. Rose replied she looked into the heart of the TARDIS, and the TARDIS looked back into her. The Doctor realized what she had done, asking if she had seen the time vortex because no one should ever look at that. The Daleks attempted to attack Rose, but she easily neutralized them. Rose said she was the bad wolf and she created herself. She scattered them across all of time and space and drew herself here. She saw through everything and she could control everything. With a wave of her hand, she turned the Daleks and their entire fleet to dust. The Doctor urged her to stop, warning she can't control life and death. The time vortex will destroy her mind. But she revived Captain Jack, declaring she can control everything now, so why does it still hurt so much? The Doctor was baffled, wondering how she could still hold on since this energy should destroy her. Rose felt her body breaking down, and the Doctor leaned in, kissed her, and said she needed a medical doctor. Through that tongueless kiss, the energy of the time vortex transferred into the Doctor, and Rose fainted. He carried her heavy body back into the TARDIS, his own cells dying from absorbing all of the vortex's power. However, Time Lords have a small trick for escaping death. They can regenerate near death. That's why so many actors have played the Doctor over the years. Some Doctors stay with us for many seasons, but others, like the 9th Doctor, only stay for 1. Before leaving, the Doctor told her she was brilliant. With that, he was engulfed in flames and regenerated. So a new Doctor, the 10th Doctor, was born. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.